I want to get to the bottom of. I want to get to the bottom of why and how the land is not in the hands of the indigenous custodians of the land. Botani mgiqo, botani jikijwa, kamagu, baba, chinga. We are going to look at why and how the land is not in the hands of the natives. But to understand why there's such commotion around the land, umhlaba, you need to understand the basis of European colonization. Europeans were not stupid. They didn't just wake up and were like, hey guys, let's go and colonize. There's a very deep reasoning behind colonization. And it was not a momentary thing. It's more like a perpetual thing. So when colonization happened, it did not happen with the goal of only colonizing one generation or only colonizing 2 generations. When colonization started, it began with the goal of colonizing an entire group of people forever. That is the basis of colonization. It's eternal. Oppression is eternal. It doesn't begin and end. It stays forever. It stays forever. So greetings to everyone. Welcome. We are just getting started, but today I want to look at land. Land, how it was seized from us. Why it was seized from us. And if it's ever going to come back. Or how it's going to come back. So it is true indeed. The greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. How much more when the mind of the oppressed is empty? It's even a much greater weapon in the hands of the oppressor. So we're gonna play some music, 1 or 2 songs. Please tap the screen and share, and then we're gonna continue now. We're gonna continue with the work. So please bear with me as I play the music. It's not for fun. The music it's doing a job. Kunjalo mbuyazi.
I just bought the cheapest Honda Jazz at We Buy Cars.
In Spain and in Portugal were tightening against anyone who was not of their religious lunacy. They were banishing a lot of people. They were enslaving a lot of people. One of the Roman laws that took center stage to this day it's still a problem to this day, is the law or the principle of terra nullius. Terra is Latin for land, territory. Nullius is what gives us the word null in English, which means zero, no one, nothing. Terra nullius is land with nothing, or land that belongs to no one. This is what they call no man's land, terra nullius. It's one of the many Roman principles that became the foundation, the gist of colonization, at least in the modern times, from the 1400s to 2025. At the core of colonization was Rome. Just like at the core of religion is Rome. Right now, I just heard that the Vatican has started to accommodate now Muslims to pray there in the Vatican as well. And I'm like, this makes sense because these people literally are invented by the same group of people, including what the systems they use. So we're gonna go back now to when the Portuguese were given special rights. When the Portuguese were given special, people think the Portuguese were great navigators. That's why they were the first Europeans to come to South Africa. No, they were given special rights and privileges to be the first ones to go and conquer lands and peoples. In the 1400s, the Portuguese went, Pule, screw you. Who gives a damn what you take serious or not? Go cry to your mother. I don't give a damn about you. So what happened is in the 1400s, the Portuguese went all the way to West Africa. And when they went to West Africa, they discovered lands. But it's interesting to me how they always discover lands that already have people. They don't just discover lands that are empty. There's somehow people in those lands, but they find a way to make those people disappear. In 1452, let me check the exact date. In 1452, on the 18th of June, please go and look this up. On the 18th of June in 1452, there was a papal bull. Now, a papal bull is a document. It's a formal decree. It's a formal declaration. You could call it maybe a directive, a policy document. So on the 18th of January in 1452, there was a papal bull that was issued by Pope Nicholas V. This man that you saw on my background. That is Pope Nicholas V. They call him Papa Nicolo V. He issued a papal bull on the 18th of January, on the 18th of June, 1452. It was called Dum Diversas. Dum Diversas simply means while being different or while being diverse. That's literally what it is. Dum Diversas while being diverse. It was a papal bull issued by this man, 18th January 14. What was the gist of the bull? The gist of the bull, it authorized King Afonso of Portugal, Afonso V. And you will see how this is relevant to you. Ne? Don't worry. It authorized King Afonso V to fight, one, to subjugate, that is to say, to oppress and enslave, two, and to conquer, three, those rising against the Catholic faith and struggling to extinguish Christian religion, And namely, these people were called the Saracens, which means the Muslims, and pagans, the rest of us. In a militarily disputed African territory. So, in 1452, the Pope was writing a declaration authorizing Portuguese King Afonso V to go and conquer and subjugate and destroy anyone in that African region from fighting against the Catholic faith and religion, and therefore white rulership in and of itself. So white rulership, white supremacy, apartheid, Jim Crow, Nazism, fascism was not invented by Hitler. It was not invented by Hendrik Verwoerd. They always call him the architect of apartheid. No, they are lying. He was not an architect of anything. Hitler was not an architect of anything. In fact, he was an addict for that matter. He was actually an addict. It was the church that invented this, the Catholic Church. That's why on the 18th of June, 1452, Papa Niccolo V, Pope Nicholas V, issued that papal bull called Dum Diversas. It authorized King Alfonso V to go subjugate, conquer, and fight anyone who dares to fight against the Catholic faith, against the Christian religion. So they use faith, religion, which they know are trigger words because people are afraid of challenging these things. They use faith, they use religion as a substitute word for white rulership. He said, Portugal, I give you the power, because Portugal had to listen to the Pope like they all listened to the Pope. He said, Portugal, I give you the power to subjugate, to conquer, to destroy, to fight anyone who dares to challenge your authority. Where is he giving this authority? In Africa. He's giving this authority in Africa. This is 200 years before 1652. This is 1452. 200 years before 1652, the famous 1652. And this is 8 generations before. The Roman Church already knows about African colonization, and the Roman Church is literally making it a policy. The Pope was more powerful than the king. The king needed the Pope's approval. The Pope is the father, the chief father. Papa, they called him Papa, Papa Niccolo. The Pope has always been more powerful. He's the head of the snake. So they all needed the Pope's authority. That's why on the 18th of June, 1452, he issued the first papal bull to explicitly authorize land seizure, people subjugation, people conquest in Africa. It's called Dum Diversas. Go and find out what Dum Diversas is. Go, do yourself a favor, find out. Don't, oh no, I don't believe this. Go and find it out, you'll see for yourself. After that, after Dum Diversas, there was a second papal bull that was specifically dealing with Africa. And I will explain how this connects to South Africa, because then it will help you understand why we are in the conundrum we are in right now. The first papal bull, Dum Diversas, meaning while we are different. Pope Nicholas V, Papa Niccolo V. The second papal bull was called Romanus Pontifex. This one was published in 1455. 1455. I want to read it for you. It says, the Roman pontiff, a successor of the key bearer. In fact, let me read a summarized version of it. Let me read a summarized version of the papal bull so that you don't waste too much time. 5th of January, 1455, Pope Nicholas V releases the papal bull called Romanus Pontifex. It was released as a follow-up of the earlier Romanus Pontifex, the Dum Diversas. This bull reinforced Portugal's exclusive rights to the African coast, particularly West Africa, Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, all the way to India. The Pope gave Portugal Africa, from West Africa to Southern Africa to East Africa. So when Vasco da Gama arrived here, when Infantino arrived here, when de Almeida arrived here in the 1400s, they didn't arrive here because they were great navigators. They arrived here because they were given exclusive rights to Africa. You think the Dutch couldn't come here at that time? You think the Dutch couldn't come? They could, but they were not allowed that power by the Pope. So the nonsense that these people were navigating is a lie. They were given directives by the head of the church, the Pope, whichever Pope at whichever time. No, this is way earlier than the Council of, but than the Belgian conference. This is much earlier. This is older. This is in the 1400s. You know, this is in the 1400s. Remember, I had told you that in 1452, before the Berlin Conference, 300 years before the Berlin Conference, Africa was already being plundered. Absolutely. It was already being plundered when the Pope was still in charge. He gave Portugal, 1452, in a bull called Dum Diversas, take over Africa. They took Morocco, they took Mauritania, they took the Sahel region. Now go online, check Dum Diversas, Pope Nicholas. You will see it. There's a lot of resources. There's even copies of the actual bull itself. Go check Romanus Pontifex, Pope Nicholas. You will see as well. It's written. There's a lot of documents. It's publicly available. So between 1452 and 1455, at that time the Caliphate was being conquered by Europeans. That's why the first papal bull of 1452 says, I give Portugal the power to conquer everyone who's against the Christian faith, everyone who's against the Catholic faith, including the Saracens, which is Muslims, and the pagans, which is the native African tribes. So Portugal was given the power to subjugate these people. That is the first bull. But then the second bull of 1455 clearly states that the Portuguese must enslave in perpetuity. It's not even mincing the words. It says they must enslave in perpetuity anyone who's not a Catholic. In Africa, in West Africa particularly. In West Africa particularly. Let me read. Let's read. As a follow-up to Dum Diversas, this bull reinforced Portugal's exclusive rights to the African coast and any territories they discovered. It explicitly sanctioned the ongoing acquisition of African captives and territories. You know, the Portuguese in the 1400s, they took about 250 people from the Guinea. 250 people, they took them back to Portugal. It said that the officials were celebrating, praising God for bringing these slaves. They were celebrating, praising God. Oh, wow, God is great. Whatever that God is. The God that takes people from their lands. They were praising God that we've finally found new slaves. We've finally found new slaves. This is 300 years before. 1400. 400 years before the Berlin Conference. The Berlin Conference is 400 years later, 16 generations later. For 16 continuous generations, they are plundering Africa day in and day out. Do you understand that it's in the genetics at this point? So that is the second papal bull from the Pope, Romanus Pontifex. It says that the Portuguese must further colonize and expand the black African slave trade. And it gave the Portuguese monopoly. So when you find the Portuguese in the 1400s here in South Africa, don't think it's because they were great navigators of the sea. No, they were given exclusive right. No one else could have been here at that time. It was by design that only the Portuguese must come. They came here in Southern Africa. They came to the Eastern Cape in 1486. In Expropriation, the Portuguese were there. They went over to KZN and they gave the name Natal to that region. They gave the name Natal to that region because they were there on the 25th of December. You understand? They were in Eastern Cape, they were in Western Cape, and they were in KZN in the 1400s. And in the 1500s, the Portuguese were still here. 1510, they're in Cape Town, fighting with the Kurikikwa. Literally fighting with the Kurikikwa. And they were defeated. They were defeated in the Battle of Salt River in 1510. This is more than 150 years before the arrival of Jan van Riebeeck himself. More than 150 years before that, the Portuguese were defeated. And I think this is where they lost interest in South Africa particularly. But they decided to further focus on Mozambique. Because at least in Mozambique, there was a strong Arab and Middle Eastern presence who had been trading slaves for the past 1,500 years, for that matter. So the Portuguese went over to Delagoa Bay, which we call Idalaguba. They went over to Delagoa Bay, established themselves there, worked together with the Arabs, with the Yemeni merchants, Omani merchants, doing slave trade, influencing some of the natives like the Swati, the Gaza, the Ngoni, who were literally selling captives. No, that was before the Cape Colony. Cape Colony is from the 1800s. The Portuguese were in the Cape before the Cape Colony. Like 300 years before the Cape Colony. They were there in the 1400s. 1486, the Eastern Cape was not a colony. People were independent in the 1400s. The Portuguese were already there. They just didn't know the area well enough to invade. But they went as far as Place. The captain, who was Infantino, he actually was the first one to get off the ship. That's why they called the river Itlesi. They called it Rio do Infantino, the river of Infantino. A lot of rivers here, they were given Portuguese names. A lot of them. Even Cape Town, they gave it a Portuguese name, actually. That's why even today in Cape Town, a lot of the names, you find them, they are Latin or Portuguese. A lot of the slogans, there's Space Bona, one of the slogans of the Western Cape. Space Bona, which means good hope. We call it, there's a Good Hope Center in Cape Town. It was also called the Cape of Good Hope. They called it the Cape of Storms. The environment was just so rough towards the Portuguese, to our benefit. It was very rough towards the Portuguese. They didn't find it, like, they were unable to really establish themselves. Had the Portuguese established themselves, we would be a diaspora right now, because the Portuguese are ruthless. But what I'm saying to you is that the Portuguese did not come here because they were interested in navigating the world, because they had this interest about life. Oh, they loved life. You've been sold propaganda, just like you've been sold propaganda about everything else. You've been sold propaganda about the inventions. You've been sold propaganda about science. They will tell you that Isaac Newton, the greatest scientist, what they don't tell you is that he was a religious lunatic who wanted to live forever. He was busy doing alchemy, trying to find the sorcerer's stone. He didn't care much about mathematics. He wanted to live forever. I actually have a very old book of Isaac Newton's. Read The Mind of the Man, realize that, dang, in physics we're learning about the laws of motion, laws of Isaac Newton. We're not learning about the fact that this guy wanted to live forever. He was actually mentored by a pastor. Isaac Newton. He was very religious and he wanted eternal life. That's what he was. The focus of his life was eternal life. That's the part they don't tell you. They romanticize the whole thing. Like he was just an intelligent European special specimen of a man. Not so much. Same thing as the Portuguese. When they came here, they were not trying to discover anything. They were here to steal, to kill, and to destroy. That's it. Proper devils. And they were given monopoly over Africa. Africa was always a piece of property to them. It was always a piece of property, as much as it was always a threat to them. But it was a piece of property. They saw gold, they saw platinum, they saw iron, they saw land, crops, they saw human capital. So when the Pope is giving Portugal exclusive rights of Africa, you think it's by mistake that somehow, yes, ivory. They wanted ivory. This is exactly why they came to Eastern Cape. This is exactly why they went to KZN. This is exactly why they went to Mozambique. They wanted ivory. Inventions have been around for a very long time. A lot of the things we learn in school, science, the theorem of Pythagoras, mathematics, those things were done thousands of years ago by ancient cultures. All of them. From Africa all the way to Middle East to Asia. Numbers, for example, the numbers we use at school come from the Arabs. Those specific numbers. But they don't really come from the Arabs themselves. Numbers are here. We use fingers to count. You just need to establish a system that is standardized to count, and that's it. We use fingers. That's why a lot of the times when we count, we use base 10. You know, there was a section in mathematics called logarithms. And logarithms are generally to the base of 10 because we have 10 fingers. That's what numbers are. So where do they come from? They come from nature. That's what the whole essence of science is. It was always the study of nature. You don't invent nature. You just learn from it. So a lot of these scientific things like theorem of Pythagoras, physics, blah, 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 they had already been done by ancient cultures, ancient African civilizations. Kemet, Nubia. We have the Ishango bone from Central Africa. We have the Libombo bone from Southern Africa. The oldest written manuscripts of language are here in South Africa in the caves. You understand? But because people have low racial esteem, they don't even trust that they can do this. Someone was saying, Sandile, it's a good thing that you're doing, translating mathematics, but physics is difficult. I'm like, what is physics? If you even understood what physics is, you wouldn't think it's difficult because physics is literally the study of motion. Inchukumo, to move. The nature of motion, that's what it was always about. The study of nature. Physique literally means nature. Go back to the original idea. Physique is imvelo. Mechanics is motion. The study of motion. The machinery behind motion. The forces behind motion. What is motion? Inchukumo. Ukushukuma, to move. All those laws, the law of inertia, an object will remain in its motion unless it is disturbed by an unbalanced force. It's basic. What is an object? Into. What is a constant motion? Ubun. Do you understand? So you think these things are complicated because first and foremost, in your mind, you've taken the European way of doing things and elevated it up. You've taken yourself and put yourself underneath their shoes. That's why then you will think so highly of it, such that your way of thinking is dull. You can't think for yourself. So you must first destroy that nonsensical school of thought. We must go back now. 1452, the Papal Bull, Dum Diversas. Pope Nicholas V says, Portugal, you have exclusive rights to Africa. Conquer everyone, subjugate everyone, including the Muslims and the pagan black people. 1455, 5th of January, Pope Nicholas congratulates the Portuguese for finding West Africa. He says, now I give you exclusive monopoly over the entire coast of Africa, from here all the way to India. Do you understand what I'm saying? Portugal was given, they were given the power and the authority to conquer West Africa, Southern Africa, East Africa, Indonesia, Malaysia, India. They were just weak. They were too weak to do it. They were unable to do it. That's why they couldn't. They were weak. What was this great navigational powers of theirs? They were literally being blown away by the winds in Cape Town. They call it the Cape of Storms. They came with mythology that Table Mountain is a sleeping giant. It's the giant of ancient Greek. No, it's not the giant of ancient Greece. It's literally mountains. Don't lie. When a car, you are unable to navigate to the other side of Cape Town. They were lying here, coming with mythology. No, you see, the mountain in Cape Town is great. It's an angry giant from the times of the Titans. He was, banished to the southern Cape. Any excuse to justify their incompetence. They were given a bit power to conquer us. They couldn't. 1510, the Portuguese are beaten and they run from Cape Town. De Almeida dies in Pardon Island. If you know Pardon Island, Cape Town, when the Salt River, when the Black River and the Lisbon River meet, they become the Salt River. They go into the sea on the towards the Atlantic Ocean in Table Bay. That's where De Almeida was beaten by an indigenous nation of Quriqequa, who were based in Rondebosch. This is called the Battle of Salt River. Took place in 1510. There's no Cape Colony at this time. There's no Jan van Riebeeck at this time. There's no Hendrik Verwoerd. The Portuguese are beaten. Basagaz. We didn't hear from them for some time. They are busy naming places here. They didn't consult anyone. They went to Eastern Cape 1486. They name our river there. They name it Rio do Infantino because the Captain Infantino is the one who was the first one to anchor. He was the first one to anchor on the estuary of the river. They call it Rio do Infantino. We said, no, this is not the Rio do Infantino. This is place. And to this day, it's still called place. All the way to Limpopo, these people, all the way to the Mpumalanga area, to Eswatini area, Mozambique area, they gave those rivers names. I will explore those Portuguese names because people think the Portuguese were not here. They were here. They named, including Natal. Why do you think it's called Natal? You think it's called Natal because abantu bakwaZulu, Abambo, Amalala, Amazansi, abantu bakwaNgqolosi woke up one day, we'll call this Natal. No, Natal literally means the time of birth, natal. Postnatal, prenatal, natal, birth, Christmas. The Quriqequa murdered. They unalived. They beat the hell out of the Portuguese in 1510. Go and research it. It's called the Battle of Salt River. The Quriqequa were using Gomagu to fight. What is Gomagu? It's oxen that are trained. What Amaxhosa call Amaqhegu. They were using Gomagu to charge towards the Portuguese. The oxen were charging and they were goring the Portuguese with the horns. They ran to the sea. His body was there, left there in the shores of Pardon Island between the Milnerton, the entrance of Milnerton today. When you enter to the first suburb of Milnerton called Brook Lane in Cape Town. He died there. And that's the last we heard of the Portuguese. We hear of them later now in the 1700s and 1800s in Mozambique. They are causing havoc there. Causing havoc in Mozambique, in Delagoa Bay. Destabilizing the entire region. Bringing slavery. And that's where the Swati and also abantu bakaSoshangane under Ugasa and some of the Abangoni, the Tsonga, that's where they start to be destabilized and engage in slavery as well. Why did they go to Delagoa Bay? Because it gave them access to the gold and ivory and slaves from warring tribes, as they call it. But this is how the what I'm trying to get you to understand is that the Portuguese were not some great navigators. They were on a mission as authorized by the Pope. Had the Pope said, Portugal, don't go there, they were not going to go. So Pope Nicholas V gives King Afonso, Pope Nicholas V give King Afonso of Portugal, King Afonso V as well. This is called Romanus Pontifex. And then in 1493 now, on the 4th of May, another papal bull. Now he's a different pope. It's no longer Nicholas V. It's Alexander VI. Pope Alexander VI. This one is called Inter Caetera. That is the name of the bull. This one focused on discovered lands. This is the one that pushes them to go and conquer the Americas. You think they went to the Americas because they love exploration? No, it was conquest. It was giving exclusive rights to Spain and Portugal. That's why the first invaders of the Americas, were Spanish and Portuguese. Have you been to Brazil? They speak Portuguese. In Mexico, they speak Spanish. They have Columbus. You know the name Americos. Those are not English names. Those are Romance languages like Spain, Spanish, and Portuguese. Yeah, they landed in America by mistake. They thought it's India. They couldn't get to India. They were looking for spices. They're looking for spices. I guess the food was very, very, very bland. Still bland to this day, for that matter. So this bull now, Intercaetera, which focused on the new lands of the Americas, also included other lands, because this bull literally was an establishment of the doctrine of discovery. It established the doctrine of discovery. In 1493, the Moors were already being wiped out. In 1493, remember, this is the Spanish Inquisition period. The Moors were ruling there from 700 AD to the 1400s. But in 1493, they were already being wiped out, so they could not have been in charge of anything. They were just probably using them as servants at that point. A lot of Moors and Jews were being banished to Africa, for that matter. Many were sent to Angola, many were sent to Congo, many were sent to Sao Tome Islands. So in 1493, when the Pope is pushing Spain and Portugal to go to the Americas, there's already a Spanish Inquisition going on under Queen Isabella and King Joao. They're wiping out the Moors. They are unaliving the Jews. They're not playing. They're taking, if they don't want to convert, they're taking the children from 2 to 10 years of age, taking them from their mothers, raising them as Christian slaves, taking the other Jews, sending them to Congo, to Angola, to the Guinea areas, to Sao Tome Islands. Now, what's interesting is that the doctrine of discovery gets really solidified at this time, together with the concept of terra nullius. What is terra nullius? Terra nullius is the concept that there's some empty land somewhere. This was solidified in later years in colonization, because they said black humans were only 3/5 people. They were only 60% human, and therefore the lands that they occupied were as good as empty. They didn't say the land was empty because you were not there. They say the land is empty because you are there, but you are not a human. You are like a monkey. You know, when you're walking into a zoo and there's monkeys, you're not thinking in your mind, damn, these monkeys own this land. Because it's monkeys. That's exactly the basis of land invasion. They're saying you don't exist as a human being. You are just something below a human. Your cousins are climbing the trees. That's literally how they wrote it. But let's move from the 1490s now to the 1500s. So now we hear about terra nullius, no man's land. And this is where terra nullius goes hand in hand with doctrine of discovery to push for the agenda of land invasion, so that when they go to the Americas and take the lands from the native peoples, they can then say, no, these people are not really human. I mean, they're not even Catholic, for that matter, so they must be less human anyway. And remember, 100 years ago, we were given the authority to enslave anyone who's not Catholic, anyone who's not white in essence. Do you understand? Because it's evolving over time. It starts as something religious. Now religion becomes the same thing as race. It becomes something racial. You get me? Because originally they were enslaving other Europeans. They were enslaving each other there. The barbarians are fighting the Goths, and the Visigoths are fighting each other. The Huns are fighting the Bulgars. The Bulgars are fighting the Franks. Obviously, I'm just saying the different names. The Franks is where you get the Frankish peoples. The Huns is where you get the people of Hungary. The Bulgars is where you get the people of Bulgaria. The Goths and the Visigoths are generally, those tribes who were originally Germanic. You have the Anglos, you have the Saxons, a lot of them all the way from Germany. They are going to the lands of the Brittonic peoples and the Celtic peoples, and they're enslaving the Celtic people, taking their lands, invading them, wiping out their languages. It's a mess. It's a cesspool of destruction and theft in Europe. Rome goes and conquers them, wipes out their culture, forces them to become subjects of Rome. They become subjects of Rome. They become fighters for Rome. They go around in crusades, raping, pillaging lands of people, taking everything from the Middle East to Eastern Europe. They're not playing around. North Africa, they're taking everything. Now, they've established this uniform identity under Catholicism. This uniform identity is what then becomes whiteness. There is no whiteness outside of Christian nationalism. There is no whiteness outside of white supremacy. The truth is that there's no whiteness outside of apartheid. There's no whiteness outside of fascism. There's no whiteness outside of Nazism. That's the truth. Whiteness is an erasure of the very identity of Europe. When Europe ceded their identities as independent ethnic groups, when they ceded that identity for Roman conquest and rulership, then they started to usher in the very essence of whiteness. So whiteness is in essence Nazism. And they can try and argue, no, you can't say that. No, that's the truth. It has been at the core. Christian nationalism, apartheid, Nazism, fascism, white supremacy, these have been at the core of white conquest of the world. They didn't conquer the world because they are nice people. They conquered the world because they believed everyone else is less human. That's the truth. And I don't remember in the 1400s there being white activists fighting against that. I don't remember the 1800s there being white activists. No, we are all human. No. I don't remember it. So that was the basis of whiteness. There is no identity in skin color. They created, it's constructed. It's power. It's not about skin color. It's about power. It's about power. That's why I'm telling you, whiteness existed as a form of conquest. It's conquest over other people. And that is why blackness in and of itself is not a real identity, because it only exists as the other in contrast to whiteness. Without whiteness, there's no blackness. That's the truth. Because you come to Africa in the 1500s, whilst the Portuguese are penetrating West Africa, taking slaves, sending them back, taking slaves, sending them to Cape Verde, sending them to Sao Tome, they bump into Congo. Who's the king of Congo in the 1530s? Nzinga Mbemba, King Alfonso I. Nzinga Mbemba, he meets with the Portuguese. King João III of Portugal. It's no longer now King Alfonso V. It's King João III. He meets with the king of Congo, Nzinga Mbemba or Njinga Mbemba, King Alfonso I. The king of Congo accepts Catholic Christianity. He gets baptized. He becomes a Catholic himself. He goes and he starts to allow Europeans, Portuguese, to trade in his own country. He loves it. He's getting European products. But guess what he's giving them? Slaves. Slaves. King Alfonso I of Congo sells slaves to Europe. Why? Oh no, they are captives of war. They are captives of war. He didn't see them as his brothers. Today, we are one Africa. No! When Nzinga Mbemba was selling other tribes, he didn't see them as the same. The very idea of Bantu people did not even exist. I see now everyone is claiming to be Bantu. Oh, we are Bantu. But when King Alfonso I of Congo was selling other people to Portuguese, he didn't think of himself as Bantu because he didn't even know what Bantu is. That's why I always laugh at this Bantu thing in all of Africa. Everyone is Bantu now. We are all Bantu. And I'm like, oh, it's so dumb actually. Go and read, guys. There are letters. There are letters between Alfonso I, who's also Njingambemba, and João III, the king of Portugal. He kept on writing letters begging the Europeans to stop enslaving his people. Because do you know what the Europeans started doing? Do you know what they started doing? They started literally taking the very people of King Alfonso. Remember, originally they were taking enemy tribes. They stopped that nonsense of enemy tribes. They started taking his own people. They started trading without any regulations. They were doing corruption in Congo in the 1500s. This is before the ANC existed. This is before ZANU-PF. You think corruption is ANC? The Portuguese were taking and selling unregulated in the Congo. He writes letters to the king of Portugal. No, he was selling slaves. We must stop infantilizing African leaders. That's another thing. We treat these people as infants, as if they're children who don't know that people are being sold. These guys literally had servants in their houses. They know what people do. They know exactly that these were slaves. I don't want to accept anything that's going to infantilize these leaders. We must stop it already. This is exactly why Africa is the nonsense that it is now. Because we want to exceptionalize black participation in African destruction. We cannot exceptionalize. It's not exceptional. They did it. King Alfonso sold people that were not part of his tribe because they were enemy tribe. The problem began where? When Europeans started going to the vassal states now. Because the Congo was bigger. The Bakongo kingdom was the bigger one. They were controlling trade. So they would trade with Europeans and other people along the coast and control which products go to which group. So they'll control products that go to the Mbundu peoples, to the Lunda peoples, to the Bayaka, to the Bangala, to the Baluba, etc. They will control all the trade. And that's how they maintain their power. Same thing here in Southern Africa. You'll find that the Tembe are controlling the trade to the Swati, the trade to the Mahlubi. That's why, they maintain power. But the moment the Portuguese started to stay in the Congo in the 1500s, the Portuguese didn't play by the rules. They went straight to the vassal states. Those vassal states started to rebel against the king of Congo now. They wanted independence. They were like, no, we don't need you now. We can buy and trade directly with Europeans. It's written in his letter. He wrote a letter to the king of Portugal. I'm going to read it for you. I'm going to read the letter. This letter was written in 1526 by the king of the Congolese. He wrote it to João III. Let me read this letter for you. Sire, your highness. Sire, your highness knows that our kingdom is losing its way. How is it losing its way? Well, the Portuguese that he allowed were starting to take his own people now. They're no longer taking the enemy tribes. They were taking his own people as slaves, unregulated. Then he realized, dang, they're enslaving us now. He thought the Europeans were honorable people who are only going to take the conquered peoples as slaves. No, they took from his own people. So he's crying to the king of Portugal in the 1520s. It's not new, this thing of Africans always wanting to be treated as infants. I've lost any patience I've had for African leaders. They are not infants, they are adults, and they must be treated as such. They rule with stupidity, they must be dealt with they must be dealt with a very, very, very tough blow, with an iron rod. That's what these people must do, so that they understand accountability. This guy is saying, Your Highness knows that our kingdom is losing its way, and we must provide the solution that this situation calls for. The cause of our troubles is the excessive permissiveness with which your trading agents and officials allow the men who come into this kingdom to establish shops and merchandise. So what he's saying is that he's losing control of his kingdom because Europeans are not playing by his rules. Do you know why they're not playing by his rules? Because 100 years before, they were given authority by the Pope to control everything and everyone. Even natives who had converted and been baptized, they still continue to enslave them. They enslaved you, baptized you, and still enslaved you more. So they didn't care that you are Christian or not. The truth is that it was all about race for them. This man engaged in practices that we strictly forbid. Well, he didn't forbid when he was selling the people of other tribes. And they scattered throughout our kingdom and dominions in such large numbers that many of our vassals who had pledged obedience to us have now renounced their obedience because they have a greater abundance of goods available to them than we. So these were foreigners. These were European foreigners invading the Congo in 1526. It's funny now when Europeans are claiming that save Europe from Africans. They were the first invaders. They came in as illegal immigrants. Criminals were running from punishments in Europe, came to South Africa, came to Central Africa, East Africa, North Africa, the Australian, the Pacific Islands, the Americas. They were the first invaders. Previously, they had been satisfied with the goods we provided them, and they remained subject to our laws and their vassalage to us. This disrupts both God's service and the security and peace of our state and our kingdoms. This is King Afonso I of Congo, also known as Njinga Mbemba. He's crying to João III of Portugal in 1526. Why is the King of Congo crying to the King of Portugal in the 1500s? Because the Portuguese don't even recognize his authority. They were just playing nice to him so that they could have access to his people. Now they're taking the people, they are selling without any regulation. They were the first corrupt leaders. They were the first corrupt leaders together with King Alfonso I. He was a corrupt leader because he didn't have a problem selling other tribes as slaves until they took from his own people. Then he's like, oh no, this is wrong. We forbid this. You didn't forbid it when the Portuguese were taking the Mbundu and the Luba and the Lunda and the Yaka and all the other groups. And this is exactly the same attitude we see with African leaders to this day. They want to be treated as infants, cowards, who don't want to take accountability. Cowards. So don't want any justification of an indigenous leader who goes and sells his own people. I don't want any justification. He could have just chosen to fight. If he's afraid that they're going to wipe him out, they might as well be wiped out, man. Not having sold his own people. Because now we will never forget that the King of Congo literally sold the Congolese people. Look at the situation of Congo today. If he had fought, maybe the situation would be different right now in 2025. It goes a long way, guys. When the Kurikekwa in 1510 fought with the armies of Portugal, with the forces of Portugal, pushed them to the sea, they saved many of us. Many people who were inland, further inland, because the Portuguese were going to take the Cape, all of it, including Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Northern Cape, including Natal. You know, they considered Natal as part of the Cape. In some writings, they called it Cape Natal. You have no idea. Remember, it's Cape to Cairo. They didn't care about South Africa. They wanted the whole thing. But the Portuguese were the first one given the exclusivity. Exclusive rights from the Pope himself, from the office of the Pope. The head of the snake, as I call him. Let's continue with this letter of Njinga Mbemba, King Alfonso I of the Congo in 1526. He says, however, we do not consider this harm as terrible as what we suffer each day when these traders carry away our native-born countrymen and the children of our nobles and vassals as well as relatives of ours. He's saying now it's painful now, guys. King of Portugal, please save me. Your traders are taking away children of nobles. That is to say, it's an equivalent of saying, now the politicians, their own kids now are experiencing what the poor people have been experiencing. Now somehow the politicians feel the pain. Now it's all wrong suddenly. And you want to tell me that this guy was tricked? He was not tricked. He understood exactly what was happening to the poor people. He didn't have a problem with it. They're just poor bastards, you know. They must go and work in Portugal. But now they're taking noblemen's children. They're taking their relatives now. They're taking the leaders' children now. Spitting in the face of the leadership of Congo, showing them that no, we're not here to play fair, we're here to take over. This is, guys, this is like more than 300 years before Belgium took Congo. It was already being taken by the Portuguese. 300 years before Belgium. That's 12 generations. Do you understand how many generations of Congo that have been occupied? 12 generations before Belgium. And then Belgium takes over for a couple of generations. For a couple of generations, Belgium takes over. So we find that it's been like 20 generations of oppression. Do you understand what oppression will do? At a genetic level, it literally changes the genetics of the people. Those people will inherit traumas that you cannot think of. Just like us. Our traumas are inherited. We've inherited traumas at a genetic level. Guys, you don't understand how genetics work. Genetics are not just passed down. They're influenced by the environment. Literally influenced. So if you eat good now, it's going to pour over to your children. If you do good things, you build good habits, it's going to pour over to your children. That's how genetics work. It's not just transferring the same thing. It's data from your lived experience. Imagine 15 generations of oppression. That will literally pass down to the children. This is why I say, you guys, us, we are the one generation that has actually a very good chance at breaking some of these, chains. So that at least the next generation is not going to be as broken as all the other ones have been. You can see our parents. They are so broken. It's they're helpless, actually. Our parents are so broken. They are the ones who used to tell us, a white person is God, my child. I've heard adults saying that. Native people, I've heard them say, trust me, I know some of you have heard that as well. White people are ancient. Only if they knew, shame. But we can't help them. They inherited a broken genetic profile in a broken world. In a broken world, as my man used to say, broken president, broken country. He didn't know he was going to be a broken politician himself. Let's continue with the letter. This continues because thieves and unscrupulous men, driven by their greed for goods from your kingdom, snatch them and sell them to these traders. Do you guys still think these people are being tricked? Sire, this corruption and depravity has reached such a level that our homeland is becoming completely depopulated. They were emptying the Congo out in the 1500s. They were emptying the Congo out in the 1500s. You think it started now with Chinese companies gouging out the titanium, gouging out the cobalt? You think it started now with the cobalt miners who are mining cobalt? Your Highness should not tolerate this situation, nor is it to your benefit. In order to avoid it, we need only priests and a few people to teach in our kingdom's schools. We have even less need of additional goods, except for wine and flour for the blessed sacrament. And we request your Highness's help in this matter. Please instruct your trading agents to send neither traders nor trading goods here, because we do not wish to carry out trade and export slaves. Once again, we beg your Highness to agree to this request. Otherwise, we will not be able to relieve this unmistakable suffering. He's begging King Joao III in 1526. Well, looking at the situation now in the Congo, clearly this begging didn't bear any fruit. Just like the Codesa negotiation didn't bear any fruit. Because right now in South Africa, 93% of poor people are black. And 60% of all black people live below the poverty line. 40% of all colored people live below the poverty line. Do you know what below the poverty line means? It means In each household, 6 out of 10 households, each individual doesn't have even 1,800 per month. 6 out of 10 black households, each individual doesn't even have 1,800 rand a month. Do you know what 1,800 rand is? Nothing. It's nothing. Some people use that daily. Some people make that per minute. But in the black community, 6 out of 10 households, individually, the people there, if you divide all their household income, each individual wouldn't even get 1,800. In colored communities, it's 4 out of 10. If you take poor people altogether, 9 out of 10 are black. The average black person earns 4,500 rand a month. And that is the average one. I'm not talking about the lower end one. On average, black people earn 4,500 a month. On average, black people earn their own wealth. The wealth that black people own is 5% of what white people own. On average. You see Mutsipe being put on social media, you think it means nothing, man. 50 million black people. Majority of taxpayers are black, but all those taxpayers are generally entry-level taxpayers. They only pay as you earn. Pay as you earn. They don't pay. They are not high net worth individuals en masse. Business tax is usually paid by white businesses. Massive numbers of middle-class black people, but most of those middle-class people work for the government. And then in few concentrated areas, like Joburg, they will be there in the private sector. But still, they are entry-level taxpayers. They don't have a significant influence over the markets. But they do tend to spend a lot. They are the ones who buy everything. In fact, the Pakistanis and the Chinese and the whites, they make sure their businesses are in the places of black people who are poor. You don't find ShopRite in Branston. Find ShopRite in KwaMashu. Find ShopRite KwaLanga. 4,000 rand per month. That's the average working black person's salary. Those who don't work, they live on 370 per month. Anyway, that is 1526 when Alfonso is begging. King Alfonso is begging. So what happens now? King Alfonso, his efforts were unsuccessful. The Portuguese crowd, they prioritized their own interests. They took great amounts of profits from slavery. Portugal, modern day Portugal, benefited greatly from slavery in the Congo, slavery in Angola, slavery in Mozambique, slavery in Sao Tome, slavery in Brazil. To Brazil. That's why Brazil speaks Portuguese. They benefited greatly. If Belgium had not taken the Congolese would be speaking Portuguese in full today. So Portugal's wealth is based off of the people that were traded out of the Congo, out of Angola, out of Mozambique, out of Sao Tome, out of Brazil. It's not because they are hard-working individuals who are earning an honest living. Lies and lies and lies. They are lying if they're telling you that. They're lying. So they took the slaves to work in sugar plantations in Sao Tome and in Brazil. They needed the slaves to go work there so that they can sell the sugar. And they did take the slaves. So a lot of the Brazilian slaves are descendants of Central Africans and Central West Africans and some Southeastern Africans from the Mozambique side. In fact, King Alfonso, the Catholic king, he was almost unalived 14 years later in 1540, because now he was actively resisting and opposing Portuguese slave trade. They tried to assassinate him. He was going to be the first Lumumba. You know Unjinga. You know Queen Jinga. You know Kimpa Vita. You know Lumumba. All from Central Africa. King Alfonso was going to be assassinated as well. So by the 1600s now, it's no longer the Portuguese only who are controlling the trade and the sea routes to India. The British, the Dutch are also greatly involved in this. Now remember, guys, it's the Pope at the head, and then it's the royal families. So when Portugal is literally enslaving Africa, it's the royal family who's getting wealthy. When England or Britain is enslaving the world, it's the royal family who's getting wealthy. And then through the royal family, the Pope or the church. When the Netherlands is enslaving Africa, it's the royal family of the Netherlands that's getting wealthy. And through that, the church. Do you understand? And tell you something, most of these royal families are cousins. They generally are all cousins from the Germanic tribes. Whether you go to Portugal, Spain, Netherlands, Germany, even Russia, a lot of them are just cousins. They come from the same ancestors. So by the 1600s now, it's not just the Portuguese, it's the English, it's the Dutch, it's the Portuguese. And we know the Dutch operated under the VOC, Verenigde Oost-Indische Compagnie. The Dutch East India Company. We have great experience with them. They took our land, they took our people. They unalived children, women, and men. They brought disease. They brought death. They genocided the people of this land. They genocided the people of this land. How do they then have power to colonize? Well, when native populations are naive to think everyone is trying to be nice like they are, when native populations decide to act like infants, they will be colonized. To this day, most black people are still infantilizing themselves. To this day, black people are still infantilizing themselves. They claim no ownership to their own communities. They want someone else to come and save them. They're waiting for a savior left, right, and center, not wanting to take control of anything. You're acting like an infant. Europeans are going to come and take everything. The Chinese are going to come and take everything. The Asians are going to come and take everything. This is their world. And this world is taken by force, not by being nice. You want to play nice and naive, you're going to lose every single thing, every single time. Playing like you're an infant here. And that's the problem with black people. They think people care about accepting you and loving. You want to be accepted and loved? You're dumb. And the world is going to keep on trampling upon you generation after generation, because all you're seeking is to be loved and accepted and validated by the world. And you don't want to stand on your own 2 feet, establish your own systems, but you want to take what people brought over and use that so that you can be accepted and validated by them. But tell you what, there's not a single system, not a single idea, not a single concept, not a single religious belief that came from outside Africa, except only to act as a handmaiden for the dominance of the group that originated the idea. Not even one concept, one idea, one administrative system came here to help you. All the systems you see, all the ideas you see, all the philosophies, Leninism, Marxism, socialism, none of them are here to help you. They came only as media to convey the dominion of the groups from which those ideas came. Dr. John Henry Clark makes it very clear. What we understood as Christianity, which I call Nazism and Apartheid and fascism, was the same thing. It's only a handmaiden of Western imperialism. And Islam, it's a handmaiden of Middle Eastern imperialism. Today you have Chinese socialism with characteristics, blah, 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 blah. It's a handmaiden for Chinese imperialism. You're going to take Hinduism, it's a handmaiden of Hindu imperialism. Why would any other group want to elevate you? Why would they want to do that? How does that make any sense in any world? And why would you want to be elevated by someone else? Why can't you elevate yourself? So there will always be conquered indigenous native South Africans and other Africans because, I repeat, they infantilize themselves. They believe that they are these infants who can't help themselves. You know, an infant will poop in his napkin, will poop in his diaper, and then go around playing, asking their mother to change the diaper. That's what native people are doing. And they expect things to change. Nothing's going to change. You'll be taken over by one group after the other. I'm just going to be very honest. We might as well prepare for that. If you're going to continue with the same stupid mindset, you might as well prepare for the next group to take you over. You decide who you want to take over now. You want China, you want Russia, you want whichever group, choose it. Because clearly, indigenous people have given themselves over to the idea that they'll never be able to rule themselves. Then allow other people to rule you then. Allow other people to take over your life. Offer yourself to slavery in perpetuity. Like the Pope said in 1452, that enslave all those pagans in perpetuity. If you're not going to resist, allow it. So how do Europeans then have so much control by their few? Europeans were not fighting with numbers. They were using this. If you are mentally untrained, weak, feeble, cannot think for yourself, you will be conquered and you will be ruled. You can see it here in South Africa today. Look at what Afriforum. Actually, it's no longer Afriforum alone today. There's a three-group alliance. I call it the new tripartite alliance. It's Afriforum, Kalikril, it's Solidarity. I forgot who's running that one. And then it's Pioneer or Libertas. I think they call it Libertas now. It's Ernst Roos. All of them, by the way, friends of Penuel the Black Pen, the god of Penuelism. Let me just check what Ernst Roos is doing. It's Libertas. I forgot the full name. Lex Libertas. Ernst Roos is running Lex Libertas, and he's hosting gala dinners in the USA and in other countries. He's hosting gala dinners. Lex Libertas, Ernst Roos. Solidarity, they're opening institutions of higher education. And you have Afriforum operating with Kalikril. And then there's also Orania. And these are the ones you can see. Imagine the ones you can't see now behind the scenes. On the militant side, you've got the Saidlanders, you've got the Commando Corps, and many others. They're training in farms, training on sniping, while others are doing propaganda work, Stratcom vibes. The others are doing military work. Others are taking over in politics in the name of DA and Freedom Front Plus. And then you also have other little parties that are also part of the same group. Friends of Penuel the Black Pen and DJ Sbu and Nota. They even went and took that American loser, Chris Wyatt, brought him to the DJ Sbu show. See what desperation does. It's like the King Alfonso of Congo begging King João III of Portugal, please, please, my king. What kind of king begs another king for the people of that king to stop taking his people? Are you a king or are you a boy? Ramaphosa doesn't even know what to do. He's been stuck between a rock and a very hard and rough surface. There's a rock this side, and this rock is very sharp. It's stuck here. And then there's a hard surface here. Ramaphosa can't breathe. The Afrikaners are strangling him from all angles. The Americans are holding the scrotum with a very, very sharp thread. They are pulling the scrotum. He doesn't know what to do. Because from the very onset, they took the position of a beggar. No. Atangosi, the truth is that Penuel has been aligning himself with Afriforum for a very long time. For me, that's delusion. If you think that the problem is that you think Afriforum is a standalone thing. Afriforum, you can't separate it from the rest of what's happening in the continent. And that's the biggest problem with native people. They think their thoughts matter. They think their views matter in this. This is an international program. It has nothing to do with what I think Afriforum is better, guys. Shut up and fight for your people. Don't think what's better, what's not. Focus on your people. But either way, now let's move from the 14, we started in the 1450s to the 1490s when they were pushing the Jews of Portugal and Spain to Africa and to the Sao Tome Islands, and then to the 1500s when they are taking Africans to work in sugar plantations in Sao Tome Islands and in Brazil. Now, they are also taking these Africans as well to Americas. We all know about the transatlantic slave trade, right? Now, what you're having is that, oh no, the DA is probably not, it's basically the National Party. And yes, they are a vassal of America and Israel because America is Israel. So now what you have is in the 1600s, contrary to popular thought that the Dutch arrived in 1652, from the 1620s already, the Dutch ships are already passing, which means the Pope has allowed the Dutch and the English now to start exploring because the Portuguese failed. They were murdered by the Kurikikwa in Cape Town. The Portuguese, they were beaten. They were embarrassed. I know they will blame something. Oh no, we were few. No, you were beaten. That's it. You were beaten by a native population who were riding oxen. So what you have now is that the Dutch and the English are also coming through in the early 1600s, not 1652. Forget about 1652. We've already gone way beyond that nonsensical way of thinking. 1600s, 1610, 1620, 1630. There's like maybe about 200 ships. Maybe around 200 ships that pass through what we call Cape Town. So I think in 1640 and 1647, I may confuse the dates. 1640 and 1647, 2 ships stay in Cape Town, one for 3 months and one for a full year. Those were the first ships that stayed for an extended period of time. Before 1652, before Jan van Riebeeck, there's a ship that was here and people stayed for about a year. Another one for about 3 months. The group that defeated the Portuguese is Uri Hikwa or Uri Hikwa. Uri Hikwa or Uri Hikwa. It means people who live on highlands. Basically on the slopes of the mountain. People who live on the slope of the mountain. It's highlanders. That's what it means. Uri means top. Khi is a clan. Kwa, people. So the clan of top dwellers. So in between 1640 and 1647, I think there are 2 ships. One stays for 3 months full. Another one stays for 1 year full. No, the Heselkwa are way far. The Heselkwa are when you're going to Eastern Cape. The Heselkwa, the Otinikwa are towards Eastern Cape. These ones are properly in the Cape Town area, in Rondebosch, in Salt River, in Woodstock. These are the people I'm talking about. And then in the CBD of Cape Town, there's a group of people known as the Kamakwa. But the Kamakwa, Kama means water, mos, Amakam. So Kamakwa means Abantu Bomlamb, people of the water. Because they live next to the river called Kamis Sa. Kamis Sa, which means the river that is sweet water, fresh water for all. So they live next to that river. It's not too many people, maybe 50, maybe 70. It's one family led by one elder. The elder is called Kau Tsamachau or Kau Tsamachau, which means the man who swims with fish. But his native name is Harry. I'm going to Harry. Because it's Harry who's dealing with these ships that are arriving in the 1630s, 1640s. In fact, he was one of the first people to be taken to Batavia in Asia. The colony in Asia. He was taken there. Yeah, the Strandlopers. Hey, that's a European name. That they are Kamakwa. That's their name. Kamakwa, water people. The Dutch called them strandlopers or watermans, the watermans. But they're Kamakwa, people of the river, because they were like custodians of the river that flows from Table Mountain all the way down to the Table Bay. So in that tribe, there's a man called Uheli in isiXhosa, Heli, and then in Kwemana it's Harry. That's why the Dutch called him Harry, the strandlooper. He's the one who engages with these people. Harry is leading a group of people known as Kamakwa. The Kamakwa come from that group, the group that fought with the Portuguese more than 100 years before, 1510. Kurikikwa. Harry comes from that group, but they separated from them. And therefore they were called Kuriki Ona. Ona means to separate yourselves. It also means children of. So Kuriki Ona, those who separate themselves from the Kurikikwa, or those who are descendants of the Kurikikwa, they went and separated themselves. They went and settled in CBD Cape Town. So when you're in Cape Town, you see places like the CBD, Oranjezicht, Frederhoek, Gardens, Tamborskloof, Schotterkloof, or Boerkap. All those places, the people who were there are Kamakwa. The people of Odeswa, the people of Heri. It's Heri. It's not English. It's not Harry, the English one. No. It's Heli in isiXhosa and Heri in Kwemana. These are the people who interact with the ships before Jan van Riebeeck. Harry is taken by the ship all the way overseas to Batavia, the colony in Asia. That's why then Harry earns the name Kau Tsama Kau. Kau Tsama Kau. Or Kau Tsama Au. Kau means fish. Kau means fish. In isiXhosa, we call it Uba. That's why we have Fish River, Uba River. Tsama is to swim. Kau Tsama. And Kau is a man. Ukau, Likau, a man. Or Kaub, Ikaba, a man in isiXhosa. Likau in Setswana. So it's Kau Tsama Kau. Or Kau Tsama Au. Kau Chumao. They call him Au Chumao these days. It simply means the man who swims amongst fish. Why? Because he used to get on the ships and trade with these Europeans. Basically, the one who's always in the waters. In fact, interestingly, with this name, he was also one of the first prisoners to be taken by the Dutch to Robben Island amongst the fish. So this name is what you would call Ekare or Isikhahlelo. It's Isikhahlelo. Like today we have Ndlovu. Ndlovu zidle ekhaya or Ndlovu boya benyathi. That's what Xawutshama'awu was. It's a Ekare. They interacted with the ships. The ships were anchored in two areas of the Cape. One of the ships was anchored in Milnerton, Dolphin Beach. If you know Milnerton, there's a hotel known as Dolphin Beach Hotel. There by Dolphin Beach Hotel in 1647, between 1640 and 1647, one of the ships was anchored there. The other ship was anchored in Muli Point. Muli Point is just before you get to Sea Point. Remember, you've got Granga Bay, you've got Green Point, you've got Muli Point, you've got Sea Point, all the way to the Cliftons and the Camps Bays and all that. So just before Sea Point, you have a place known as Muli Point. It's got a nice little lighthouse. The other ship was there. These two ships, I'm mentioning them because they were anchored for more than 3 months. One was 3 months, the other one was 1 year. Before 1652. So when they say the Dutch arrived in 1652, that's a lie. What happened in 1652 is that a criminal who had been stealing money from the Dutch East India Company, which is also a criminal enterprise of the royal family of the Netherlands, which they are criminals themselves, a criminal called Jan van Riebeeck stole and did illegal business there in Batavia. So he was called to order in the Netherlands and they exiled him to Africa because he was stealing so much. He didn't even want to stay here. He came here, he built a mud house. He called it a fort. He stole a river when he arrived here. That river called Kamisa. Where the so-called strandloopers were staying. He stole it. That's one of his first crimes was to steal a river. Imagine you get to a new land and already you are stealing the river of that land that has been sustaining those people. He stole it. He claimed that river. That was the first crime. To this day, that river, nobody has access to it. It's flowing underground in Cape Town. He stole it. And then within the first 30 years of Jan van Riebeeck's settlement, 70% of the population of Cape Town was wiped out. Those who survived ran to Namibia, ran to the Northern Cape, ran to the Eastern Cape, ran as far as Limpopo. As far as Limpopo. Because they were being wiped out. The crazy thing is that when these people arrived, it was Dutch, German, English, some French. When they arrived, they didn't even have anything to eat. They were eating whales and seals. Literally, they write it in their own diaries. I've got these diaries. They were eating whales and stuff. They needed mutton. In fact, they arrive around April, right? It's just before the beginning of what? Of winter. The pastoralists, also known as Okhokwa. They tend to, because the Okhokwa were based around Somerset West and that Hottentot Holland mountain area. So they basically were the biggest group, the most powerful group. So they used to go to the Cape Flats area and use it as a grazing ground and then go all the way to the west coast side just to make sure they have control of the land. The Dutch saw them once or twice because it's about to be winter. And in winter, pastoralists always move around. So they saw them moving. They were no longer there now. A few months later, the Dutch assumed, hey, this is nobody's land. No, it's people's lands. People are not going to change the way they live because now there's there are Dutch and German criminals here. We are pastoralist people. Same thing in the Eastern Cape, Because I used to head their cattle to the Sierveld, a Georgewin, in one season, and then to the Sweetveld in another season. The Dutch are like, oh, you're not in the Sierveld now. We are taking the Sierveld. The same thing they did in Cape Town. The Cape Flats, remember, it's not flats, it's just flat land. It is not buildings, it's flat land. That was grazing grounds for the Okhokwa. Okhokwa is people with sharp cheeks. But then there were many other people in the peninsula, like today's Fishhook, today's Komechi, Simonstown. There were people there. The Gurikhurikwa were there. Gurikhurikwa and many other groups all the way up to Saldanha and, Big Bay, all the way up, Langeban, Mammelsbury. There were people. But what we do know is, within 30 years of the arrival of those Dutch and German and English thieves, within 30 years, 70% of the population that was in the CBD, 70% was gone. However, the leader, at least of the clan known as Amakwa, Ueri, he was the leader of the clan. There was another senior leader called Udiswa, the father of Konema. Those were the actual leaders by bloodline. He stayed. He saw the whole thing that these people are doing. In fact, they took his niece, known as Gorotwa, the one they call Krotowa today. Her name is Gorotwa. Gorotwa simply means a girl who's under someone else's care, an orphan girl. They took Gorotwa, they taught her Dutch. Her Dutch was even better than Harry. She became the official translator. Do you know what made Jan van Riebeeck stay? Remember, Jan van Riebeeck was in exile. He didn't want to stay here. What made him stay is when he met another group called Qinikwa. The Qinikwa were based on the Overberg region between Grabo, Botrivier, and Rivier Sonnerend and Breë Rivier today in the Overberg of the Western Cape. He met that group. The group came down to Cape Town. He met them. They told him that there's gold in the country. Literally. Even again, it's in Jan van Riebeeck's dictionaries. It's in Jan van Riebeeck's dictionaries. They literally told him there's gold in the country. In fact, they told him there's a woman, a wife of a chief. The chief is called Kaintina. His wife came from the Eastern Cape. And she had this nice gold jewelry. Jan van Riebeeck called them. He showed them his ring. He wrote this in his dictionary. He's like, does she have this? They were like, yes. And then they agreed that Kaintina, the chief of the Tsinikwa, under the king, Soswa, the grandfather of Doga, also called Klaas. And this is in the late 1600s. They said, look, come back with your wife. So that was the plan. Kaintina is going to come with his wife. On their way back, remember, it's very far. Grabo is far. These people are using ox to travel. On their way back, they had a battle with the Okhokwa. The wife was that day. So Jan van Riebeeck didn't actually end up seeing the gold. But he was triggered by it. He was intrigued. Such that the second governor of the Cape after Jan van Riebeeck, a mixed-raced guy called Simon van der Stel. He was half white and half Asian. Some people call him the first colored governor of the Cape. He was the second governor after Jan van Riebeeck. He took it upon himself to continue Jan van Riebeeck's project of going to find the gold. In fact, Simon van der Stel set up a group of people who were led by a man called Isaac Schrijver. They called him an ensign. Ensign Isaac Schrijver. He led them in the 1680s, 1689 to the Eastern Cape. They went to the Eastern Cape as far as Graaff-Reinet. In the kraal of who? Of a man, a king, Uyintsati, a king of the Inkwa Hase. Today, they are known as Unu Kwebe. Some of them, like Washu, Statu. The leader in the 1680s was Inkwa, was Hikon or Hintsati. Isaac Schrijver met with this man. He recorded the whole thing. What was his plan? His plan was to figure out where the actual gold was. Because these people are not here to find gold. They were here to just establish a refreshment station. Jan van Riebeeck was a bloody criminal who couldn't wait to go back to Asia to continue his criminal enterprise. But now his criminal enterprise had to take a break because he found out there's bloody gold in this place. And because he found out there's gold in this place, he's like, I am staying. Unfortunately, he died before he saw the gold. So Simon van der Stel had to continue. He had to continue until they realized, damn, this place connects us. This place connects us to what? It connects us to Mwene Mutapa. It connects us to Great Zimbabwe. We can find the gold because Mwene Mutapa is accessible from here. Great Zimbabwe is accessible from here. They figured that out. They also figured out that there's more people in land. There's more kings here. These people have sheep. These people have cows. These people have tobacco. These people have dacha, which is our native plant. It's a plant that we really trade here. These people have beads. These people have iron. They've got copper. These people have trade. They've been trading routes established from Cape Town to the Eastern Cape, from the Eastern Cape to Northern Eastern Cape to Free State to Northern Cape. They've been trading routes. Most of those trading routes today are literally in farms. How were they trading routes? You know, they always say that, oh, Africans didn't invent the wheel. How do we then have native carts called koloi and kolohiya and ngola and nwelo? We had bloody native carts, our own vehicles. We had native carts, ikolohiya ngesixhosa, koloi kaSisuthu Setswana, inwelo ngesixhosa, ngola in isiZulu. We had these bloody things that we built by ourselves. That's why there's trade routes that can be tracked between the different provinces. And today you are shocked when you find a clan in Limpopo known as Bakoni. You find Banguni in the Eastern Cape, Abenguni in KZN, Vangona amongst the Bavenda. You get shocked. We're telling you, these are the same people like, oh no, is it possible? Because there's been trade for the past thousands of years. Don't you think that some people scattered? When we tell you that in Eastern Cape we have Amakoma, in Northern Cape we have Omani. When we tell you that we have Kauni in Botswana, and Koni in Limpopo, and Nguni, and Gona in Eastern Cape, we're telling you these are the same. You're like, oh really? But anyway, Simon van der Stel sent these guys. They went as far as Cradock and Graaf Reinet. They went back to Cape Town. They recorded this whole thing in a book called The Record by Moody. I have the book. Obviously, it's not free. But if you feel willing, you can go look for it somewhere. I don't know. I normally sell these books for 250 to 300. But I have it. It records the whole thing. It records place names. It records the people, the physical characteristics of the people, their skin color, their type of hair. It records their names and all these things. Anyway, the point is that Isaac Schrijver was sent by Simon van der Stel to find where the resources are. And this intrigued them even more. After this, they were intrigued even more. They wanted to go deep into the land and find this bloody gold. Do you understand? But at the same time, there's shipwrecks that are happening. There's shipwrecks that are happening along the so-called Wild Coast. From 1554, 1552, you have the shipwreck of the Sao Tome, Portuguese. Shipwreck of the Sao Bento, Portuguese. Shipwreck of Stavanese. Shipwreck of the Grosvenor. You've got about like 6 to 7 shipwrecks from the 1500s all the way through to the 1800s in the Wild Coast alone, from KZN to Eastern Cape. And these shipwrecks, there's people there who are writing down what they're seeing. Do you get what I'm saying, guys? You don't need to be told by AI what's happening in South Africa. There's records, there's literal records. And we also have oral history that has been proven to be correct for the most part and to be accurate going back 10 generations. Even Europeans accepted it. Read their books. They're telling you that we could take this record oral history as being accurate at least for a minimum of 10 generations from now. Do you know what 10 generations is? It's about 250 years. So whenever the books were written, if a book was written in the 1680s and there's oral history there, that oral history, take it back 250 years. So that's how accurate it gets. It's Europeans who say this, it's not me. And it's been proven. It's a theory that's been proven that the oral history of South African native records is correct for a minimum of 250 years. So if the survivors of the Grosvenor and the Stavanese in the 1680s, in 1686, were writing about things they saw, or the oral history of the natives in 1686, all you have to do is to go back 250 years. If the Portuguese in the 1590s were talking about abantu bakwaGumede, Omanukuza, between the Limombo Mountains and the sea, in the 1590s, about the Manukuza people, that they were already an independent group, you go back 250 years on their oral history to understand the level of accuracy. If Portuguese Atlas or Portuguese Asia, the book that was written in the 1400s, mentions the Nguni and the Abambo as being in Natal in the 1400s, go back 250 years to see how accurate these stories are. You realize that, damn, you're in the 1200s and the story setting is already in the places that we already are today. For the most part, we don't have any memory of native people being anywhere else except South Africa. I always tell people that they're like, oh no, we come from Embo. And I'm telling you, look, there's not even one record where we talk about Embo, where Embo is not here in South Africa. There's not even one record where we talk about Ebunguni, where we come from, Ebunguni, where Ebunguni is not in South Africa. In all our records, when we talk about Embo, it's usually literally within the same province. In Tswana, it's here, just before you get to Mpumalanga from Gauteng. The Botswana tell you they originated in Matieng. It's literally here between the border of Botswana and South Africa. That's where the Botswana say they originated from. But someone's going to come and tell you, no, Botswana come from Egypt. But they don't have an oral history saying that. Basulu don't have oral history saying that. You're the one who's just dreaming. You're dreaming because you don't know who you are. So you need to replace the actual history with something that doesn't exist. When you look at the actual records, archaeology, going back at least 2000 BC, even genetic evidence, go to the Chwa people of Zimbabwe, the Shwakwe peoples of Zimbabwe and Botswana, going back 200 BC, 2000 BC, there's evidence that these people who are here today have always been here. So what are you talking about? You think AI and Wikipedia is going to tell you the true history of this land? Let's go back. We're still going with the timeline. Remember, we started in the 1450s. I'm telling you how the land is taken and why. I told you the Portuguese are here not because they're trying to navigate. they're under a mission through the Pope. I'm telling you, now the Pope has opened the floor for the Dutch and the Germans and the English to take over because the Portuguese are weak and they were conquered in 1510. The Portuguese do a comeback, by the way, through Mozambique and Delagoa Bay because they realized, damn, we're not going to get the Cape now. We're not getting the Cape. So they're doing a comeback through Delagoa Bay, and they're there working with the Middle Easterners. They are working with the Omanis. They're working with the Yemenis, selling bloody slaves, and they're trying to get the gold as well. The Portuguese are taking the gold of Zimbabwe. They're taking the gold of the Limpopo area. Remember, Mapungubwe from 600 AD was already having gold. 600 AD, we were already mining gold using native methods. That's why we've got names for these things. We didn't need names from Europe for gold. We didn't need names from Europe for iron. We didn't need names from Europe for copper. We didn't need names from Europe for metal. We didn't need names for Europe for the process of smelting in and of itself. When we say isidlangalala, we're talking about the hearth, the fire hearth, where you actually melt the gold. When you say ungalahli imbo ngophoyana, imbo, it's the stone that you dig, particularly the golden stone, gold. When you talk about isnyit, we're talking about ore, the ore from which then you have to purify the gold. But because you don't know that, you think, no, maybe we came from somewhere, guys. No, you just don't know. So don't be delusional. Just go and find out the stuff you don't know. Don't come here with the delusional theories, yeah? You believe everything that Europeans are telling you. No, we came to Africa to civilize. No, you didn't come to civilize. You did not come to civilize. You didn't. They came here to take. So we do have a process of purifying metal, ions and metals and precious metals. We have where we pump the air. We call it imvute. We call it imvute, or I forgot the name. I've got drawings of these process. I've spoken about it greatly previously. Thank you guys for the gifts. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you, my people. I see some familiar faces. I see Observer. Welcome. Welcome, Nondwaiza. Welcome, everyone. I've spoken about iron smelting and gold mining. I just forgot the names now. But we do have the fire hearth. We call it Slangalala or Iziko. Shitiko Shanzilo. In Tsonga, Slangalala ngesixhosa. The gold itself, Imbo or Ibenga or Imbasa. Different names. By the way, Imbasa comes from the word fire, ukubasa, to make fire. The fire stone, the stone of fire, Imbasa. Ibenga comes from the word to shine, ukubengezela. Imbo comes from the word ukumba, to dig. And then you've got the actual forging. So you've got digging, which is the mining process. Ukumba or ukutapa. Ukumba or ukutapa. When Zulu people talk about looting, they talk about ukutapa. But ukutapa is actually the extraction of minerals. Batapa, when they extract. That's why Mwene Mutapa in Zimbabwe. Also, Mwene is ownership, umnini. Mutapa is the conquered land, but also the land from which resources are extracted. Mutapa, therefore the land that is being mined. The owner of the mined land. Mwene Mutapa. The Zulus also use this word, ukutapa, to loot. Some means your tap. Abelungu have been tappering this land for a long time. Let's go back. Let me not digress too much. So Simon van der Stel then receives this guy's bag. You see, there's a Kalanga gentleman here. He's confirming that in Kalanga they also have the word uktap. Now, here's the thing. Simon van der Stel receives these people back. They report to him what they saw. They saw this and this and that. He realizes that, damn, there's so much more in this land. So they have to organize other trips now. Remember, I told you that as they're doing this from the Cape, there's shipwrecks that are happening since the 1500s in the east side. So there's a lot of books that are being written. So now the Cape invaders and the east and north invaders are meeting and they're sharing documentation. They are sharing documentation that, damn, we saw this and that. So the Dutch are realizing that the Portuguese are there in Delagoa Bay. The Germans are realizing that the Germans end up actually going to Delagoa Bay, seeing for themselves the trade that is happening there. They see for themselves that these people are wearing silk, literally. These people are wearing silk. They've been trading for a long time. They've been trading with the Chinese and the Indians. They've got glass beads. They've got golden beads. They're wearing silk already. They respect women. Yes. It's written in their records that women are being respected. Yes. Sometimes women, when they pass on the road, the men move to the side so that the women can pass. It's Europeans who write this. It's not me. It's not me. Talking about how women are respected. I wonder what went wrong. So now, by the way, Simon van der Stel was mixed-raced. And Simon van der Stel is the same person that the place called Stellenbosch is named after. Stellenbosch, the bush of Stel, which is van der Stel. It's also the same person that Simonstown is named after. In fact, Simon van der Stel owned one of the oldest farms in Constantia. Notwithstanding that some of the farms were owned by freed slaves. Remember, as the Dutch are arriving, 6 years after their arrival, they are confiscating slaves. They are confiscating slaves from the Portuguese who have been weak for the longest time. Portuguese have always been weak, by the way. So the Dutch in 1658 are confiscating slaves from the Portuguese. The first African slaves are arriving in Cape Town. These are slaves from Angola and Congo. 1658. In fact, the slaves from Africa were the biggest of all people, were the biggest population in Cape Town. They were the biggest population in Cape Town. They were taken from Congo, they were taken from Angola, they were taken from Zimbabwe, they were taken from Mozambique, they were taken from Guinea, Cameroon, Ghana. These are the slaves. Most of them got their freedom back. Some were sent to Asia. Some got their freedom back. They managed to get lands. They managed to get lands. They managed to own farms. It's many. I'll read some of the names. Just give me a minute. I'll read some of the names for you. Some of the farm owners in the Cape. Mai Angela van Bengal. This one is from Asia. Evert van Guinea. Evert van Guinea. Huna van Guinea. Maria Evert van de Kaap, which means she was born in the Cape. So she was the second generation of slaves now. Claes van Guinea. Abraham van Guinea. Kudu van Guinea. Anthony van Guinea. Van Angola, sorry. Lisbeth van Angola. Manuel van Angola. Susanna van Mombasa, this is Kenya. Marquardt van Cleon, or van Ceylon. Jan van Ceylon. Louis van Beck. These are slaves who were taken from Kenya, from Central Africa, from East Africa, from West Africa, from Mozambique, from Zimbabwe. They were here. Some of them ended up owning farms. You see, Constantia, Camps Bay, Franschhoek, the Drakenstein area today, the richest and best municipality in the whole Western Cape, called the Drakenstein municipality, where you have Stellenbosch, Paarl, Franschhoek. That's where these slaves, these freed slaves, owned these farms. Where are the slaves today? Well, they married into white society, most of them. Married into white society and became white. This is called whited out. Whited out. The native peoples, the tribes, Korikikwa, Korikikona, Tochokwa, Tinikwa, most of them, or they were reduced to farm workers. To this day, you go to Stellenbosch, to the wine farms, drive around the wine farms, you'll see the people that are working in the farms, they are so poor. So those who couldn't be, they had to be married into white society. So a lot of white people are going around with West African DNA, going around with East African DNA. It's true, Samkel. You're either whited out or wiped out. There are many other African winemakers that I can talk about. I think I'll do a series this coming year on this. I'll do some documentary. I'll go to these wine farms, probably look for the descendants of these people. I'll do a series on this. So anyway, now these Europeans from the Eastern Cape and Natal and De La Goa Bay and the Europeans who were in the Western Cape start to share documentation. They know, damn, there's gold here, there's gold here. Now that's where they decide they're staying. They are staying, they're not leaving. Remember, originally they were just here to pass by. They're staying now. It even catches the attention of the British Empire. And this is where South Africa, the birth pangs of South Africa are starting now. It catches the attention of the British Empire. But remember when I told you that terra nullius, dum diversas, Romanus Pontifex were all pretexts for the doctrine of discovery. These Roman declarations through papal bulls were pretexts for European colonization and at the forefront of the doctrine of discovery and the no man's land. So they realized that, look, we're going to stay here, but for us to stay, we have to own everything. They remembered that the Pope had given them exclusive and monopoly over all the lands that are discovered. So they discovered the land. But how do you discover a land that has people? Well, you just dehumanize those people. That's all you do. You dehumanize those people. How do you dehumanize the people? You tell them that, look, you people, I'm going to separate you into groups now. There's Bushmen, there's Hottentots, there's Gaffers, right? And you people, you are monkeys, all of you. You are apes, you are this, you are that. Therefore, you are not human. You are only 60% human. That means, therefore, that you actually don't own anything because you are not human. I own everything now as a European here. I will rule you in your lands. You resist, we wipe you out. You join us in, we will white you out. I repeat, you resist, we wipe you out. You join us, we white you out. And therefore, we civilize you by whitening you out. That was the whole story. And this is when the Dutch are taking over. The Dutch come with 3 solutions on how to take the land. Firstly, declare the land as terra nullius, as per the pretexts of the Roman Empire. This land is no man's land. No one owns it. There's no people here. They are all monkeys and baboons. Once you declare the people as non-human, they established a 3-tier system. They used what they call Wederrechten, Leerlingplatz, and Commando. This is an expropriation system. They expropriated without compensation in the 1600s, and they never looked back. In a 3-tier system, Wederrechten, Leerlingplatz, and Commando. So they call it grazing rights, basically. Grazing rights where you pay taxes, you get grazing rights, you lease from the Dutch East India Company, and then they set up commandos, they police you. This is where some of the Boer now, who don't like to be controlled, start to be, they start to fight for rights, and they're given status as vryburgers, which means free townsmen. Burg is a town. Burg means a walled town, Originally, it comes from the name for a castle. So the vryburgers, these are the free townsmen, citizens, basically, in a way. They are allowed to go and farm. They start to want to run away from the authority of what? Of the colony. Now, the Dutch East India Company wants to focus on the Cape Colony, but what they're doing is they keep on pushing the boundaries, keep on pushing the boundaries. They get to places like George, Outiniqua, places like Ramcha, which they call Beaufort West today, Lugamka. They're pushing the Xhosa people out of under Habana, the Xhosa people under Xhosa people of Gwali are being pushed back across Xelexwa, which we call Khamtuos, which they call Khamtuos, it's Xelexwa. Pushing them back across Xelexwa, pushing them back across Nweba, Sunday's River, pushing them back across Kowi River, which we call Oi. They're pushing them back across Mucha, pushing them back across Gqeberha, pushing them back across Nguba, Fish River. And remember, when I say pushing them back, I mean genociding. It's been genocide since 1552. They've been genociding these populations. They're not pushing like, please go, guys. No, they're wiping them out. But now, the Dutch East India Company is losing authority. It's losing control of the Vryburgers. The Vryburgers are crossing the boundary, trying to trade with the natives as well. They don't want to be controlled. But also the Vryburgers were very brutal. They were enslaving the native peoples. See, all those native tribes, the Kuriqikwa, who had survived, they were taken as slaves by the Vryburgers themselves. Taken as slaves. Now, the Vryburgers didn't want to be told how to treat the slaves. So they wanted to be free. That's why they went and established farms far away, close to the border, close to the boundaries of the natives. They lived in those boundaries with their slaves and mistreating them there. Now, the Dutch East India Company is grappling with this because they are losing control over these Vryburgers. On the other hand, you've got now the British Empire trying to take over now the Cape Colony. Do you get it? They're trying to take over the Cape Colony. So the native people are starting to fight now, fight back against the Dutch. They're fighting back against the Dutch. Hey, it's a mess. People are being wiped out. People are being genocided. The Cape Colony, it's just genocide. The Kuriqikwa are genocided. The Kuriqikona genocided. The Koholqwa genocided. Chinikwa being genocided. The Kuriqikwa are genocided. The Hesekwa are being genocided. The Kautinikwa, the Gwali, the Mdange, the Ndlambe, all these different groups are being genocided. That's the truth. It's genocide. Land expropriation happened through genocide. That is the answer I'm giving you today. When the Dutch realized that the Verjachten, Leerlingplatz, and commando system did not work, and the Vryburgers were entering the native boundaries, there was genocide that was following after that. Because the first thing is that native people don't operate by Roman Dutch law. Native people do not understand terra nullius. There's no man's land here. Native people have their own indigenous law systems. They understand how cattle works. They don't if there's a hunting community here, I repeat, if there's a community that lives off of hunting, the community that does pastoralism needs to move away. So if you've got Sonkwa people who are hunters only, and then you've got Nika people who do herding of cattle, the Nika people need to find an agreement to move away from each other so that the Sonkwa don't chow the cows of the Nika, and the Nika are not forced to fight with the Sonkwa. I'm still working on the numbers. I'm still working on the numbers of how many people were genocided, because we're going to need these numbers to be published as part of national statistics. We're going to need these numbers to be published as part of national statistics. The blood of our ancestors cannot go to waste. Now we need to take the ANC to account, because they've been protecting these genociders for a very long time. The weak ANC, the puppet, useless ANC. We need to take them to account. We need to cause them endless headaches. So I'm still working on the numbers. I'm going to start from the Cape all the way to Limpopo. We need to know how many people were genocided. It may be the biggest genocide ever. So what you have now is war taking place. But it's not really war. It's invasion, because war is when two groups are fighting. This one group is taking over. It's like a parasite coming over into the environment of these cells, and it's taking over the cells. It's mutating the cells, bringing evil behavior. They are bringing evil ideas, such as ownership of land. What do you mean ownership of land? Because this land belongs to the native people of this land. We don't know that you can own land. They're talking about owning rivers, owning private beaches. Owning a beach. How do you own a beach? For us, we are just left by our forefathers to take care of this place. You can't own it. We are taking care of it through the directive of the royalty. No. We are owning it now. Heban. This is now early 1700s towards mid 1700s. Now, the British Empire is starting to come in as well. And remember now, the shipwreck survivors, they are wreaking havoc in the native populations in Pondoland, in Xhosaland, in Timberland. They are mixing with the population, living their own descendants there. Today, we have descendants of Scottish people. They are called Amaskoji. We have descendants of Celtic and Brittonic peoples. I know I have a friend from the Roscrouge bloodline. Roscrouge. They are Mpondo, some are colored. Same bloodline. We know the Dans, the descendants of Dan, and the Finns. Some are colored, some are Zulu. You've got the descendants of the Irish, the Beresford. In deep Eastern Cape, the Beresfords. You have the Barms, the people who are Barm, descendants of Europeans. You have the Bantams. All these are proper English surnames. And these are not just adopted names. There's history behind these names. And then you've got a bigger group, an older group known as Abelungu, much older, from the 1400s, from the 1500s. These are Portuguese descendants. You have Amamolo, which are said to be Maroons, Asian Maroons, who were probably slaves of the Portuguese when they were shipwrecked. And then now the British come in, they add another layer to this thing. The British come in, they change the whole story. They say, you know what? There's no people in this land. We are the natives. I kid you not. The British came and said they are the actual Aboriginal people of the land. Because they say the so-called Bushmen are just monkeys and the other groups are just half monkeys. They're not people. Go and read up on the work of Mary Barber and Thomas Bowker. These are relatives. Read up the work of these people. They are telling you straight that, in fact, we are the Aboriginals. The British are the original people of Southern Africa. If you don't believe me, go and read it yourself. I have no motivation to be lying to you. I repeat, the end game. The British came with the end game. They said, we are the natives of South Africa. Because these are not humans. So there was no people when we came here. Now the British were smart. They realized that, the Dutch, where the Dutch were weak, the Dutch were shy. They were shy to go full force. The British were not shy. The British, they came twofold. They came through missionaries who were also agents, spies. The missionaries were spies. And then shortly after the missionaries followed magistrates. And the magistrates were accompanied by soldiers. The British did not play. They showed the Dutch how you colonize. They showed the Portuguese how you colonize. They broke us, the British. We have to be honest. I'm literally speaking in English right now in 2025. They broke the bloody hell out of us. They took all the princes and the princesses. They built private schools for them called missionary schools. To this day, South Africa, to this day, the people we think of as heroes of the struggle are mostly descendants of the princesses and princes who were taught by British invaders. Nelson Mandela, he was taught in a missionary school. Winnie Madikizela Mandela taught in a missionary school. Holomisa most likely taught in a missionary school. If not, his father was. Most of the politicians we look at today are children of chiefs, and the chiefs were the first victims of British imperialism. The chiefs were the first victims. That's why if you go to these royal families, they all have English names. I mentioned it yesterday. You've got Xhosa kings who were named after Alexander. King Sandile. Alexander, they couldn't say Alexander, they called him Sandile. His daughter, Princess Emma. Another daughter, Princess Victoria. You've got Xhosa princes called Botoman, and Anta, and Archibald, Goodwill, Nelson. Jacob. I haven't heard a Gedleyihlekisa in the British House of Commons. There is no Gedleyihlekisa in the British House of Commons. There is no Maqoma in the British House of Lords. I'm still waiting to hear a person called Maqoma in the House of Lords in Britain. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? It tells you that the conqueror writes the story. The conqueror changes your name. That's why people who lie about that thing, oh, there's Bantu invasion, they are so dumb, because these so-called invaders have names like Nwina, names like Mkikela, names like Maqoma, names like Xhoxho. How can you have a name Xhoxho, but you were the one invading the Xhoxhos, but you are the Xhoxho yourself? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. How can Basotho in ancient circumcision songs say Murwa ka Butlhali has exposed that which was hidden? The so-called Bushman, in his smartness, has revealed something that was hidden. That's a circumcision song. If you know, you know what it means. How can they feature songs that talk about these people who they know are their people if they invaded them? Guys, before the Great Zimbabwe, before Mapungubwe, there's something called the Happy Valley people. 350 BC, 350 AD in Limpopo. Before Mapungubwe, the predecessor to Mapungubwe is what they call the Happy Valley culture. 350 AD, 600 AD in Eastern Cape, you can see evidence of Xhosa people already. And I'm saying Xhosa in terms of the modern people we know Xhosa. There were obviously earlier people who gave birth to the people we know as Xhosa. 600 AD, 350 AD in Limpopo, the culture that gave birth to Mapungubwe is visible there. In the Botswana, Zimbabwe area, going back to 2000 BC, 1000 BC, 2000 BC, there's evidence within the Chwa peoples and the Shwakwe peoples who were basically the ancestors of what we call Botswana today and Bavenda. The Chwa and the Shwakwe, they were the ancestors of what we call Tsonga and Botswana and Bavenda, together with what became known as the Kalanga people. You know, have you seen the DNA sequencing of Kalanga people? Hey, you'll be shocked, Baba. You'll be shocked. AD and BC. Normally, I do CE and BCE, before Common Era and Common Era. Yeah, the Leidenberg heads with Ndebele attire dated 500 AD. Go check the DNA profile of the Kalanga. You will see, hey, these people, they have the same DNA as the Chwa and the Shwakwe. Those groups are the ancestors of what you understand today as Venda, as Tsonga. Yabo. Going back 1000 BC, about 3000 years ago, even cliques, they say cliques are borrowed. Scholars are discussing that nonsense. No, not cliques are not borrowed, actually. No one borrowed cliques. These people have had cliques for the longest time because their oldest ancestors have clique names. Their oldest ancestors have clique names. How does this work? So now, what happens is that the British take over from the Dutch and the British wipe the people out like nobody's business. They take the kings and the princesses to school, missionary school, baptize them, Christianize them. After they Christianize them, they give them alcohol. Look at that nonsense. You're saying I must become Christian, but you're also giving me alcohol. Oh yes, you must be drunk so that I can take your land. Ask the Xhosa people, they know through King Hintsa. The Xhosa people, they know through King Hintsa. King Hintsa was killed by the Southey brothers. George Southey and his brother. Let me just check the name. Richard Southey and George Southey. They murdered King Hintsa. Harry Smith was there. Today, you have a place called Harry Smith in South Africa in honor of a great colonizer and genocider. In the river Ngabach. Yes. They shot him from the back. Bah! They shot his mouth. Bah! They took out his jaws. They took out his teeth. They cut his ears. Even the skull. Nobody knows where the skull is. Why are you taking the skull of a king? Unless you think you're going to draw some power from it. I want to show you something. In the Christian church, skulls have been used as decor. I repeat, in the Christian churches, skulls have been used as decor. Maybe the skull of King Yinza is there as a decoration in Europe. Maybe they're decorating with it. Just search. And they call it fine art, by the way. They say it's fine art. The same way they used to cut the bums of native women and the penises of men. They used to cut the bums and the penises. And they used to take these as souvenirs and hang them in museums. After they unalive you, they take your private body parts and use them as souvenirs. Why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this so that you understand the story of Afriforum, the story of Lex Libertas, the story of Solidarity or Orania is not what you think it is. They literally believe at the core of their existence that they have a right, they have authority, they have a monopoly over you. I repeat, culturally they believe that they have a monopoly over your existence. They were given that authority by the Pope. When they were selling your ancestors as slaves, it was nothing wrong for them. They had a right. They were entitled to it. It was the nature. It was how it was always meant to be. And you need to understand that truth, because to them it is a truth. If you keep on denying that, you're going to always be doing, hi, we are not chasing you away. We just want a seat at the table. That in their minds, they're like, what table are you talking about? What table are you talking about? You are my property. Why are you discussing with people who think they own you? Why are you discussing with people who think they own you? You need to understand the root of what you call white supremacy or racism or Nazism or apartheid. It's not something from 1948. They tell you that Hendrik Verwoerd invented apartheid. They're lying. Hendrik Verwoerd did not invent anything. He was a bloody Dutch illegal immigrant, just like your Helen Zille, who's an illegal immigrant from Germany, Rob Hersov, illegal immigrant from Russia, Phil Craig, illegal immigrant from the British island. It's a tiny island in Britain. It's like a province. But we were run by a province. They conquered countries, vast pieces of land. Because they have a deep-seated, deeply essential belief in their psyche, from generation to generation to generation, that they are entitled to your existence. They see you walking there, they're like, damn, that's mine right there. You are mine. There's a meme I used to see of this guy claiming that you are mine. You are mine. That's literally what they think of you. That's literally what they think of you. You are busy. I just want a seat at the table. What seat at the table? You are the meal. Do you not understand? You are literally the meal of the day. You are the soup of the day. When you want to sit at the table, are you delusional? We are dividing you. We are separating you. I'm getting the thigh. The other one is getting the breast. The other one is getting the brisket. From you, we are eating you. You are the meal. We are here to be chowing you when you want to sit at the table. That means the past 500 years have not taught you anything. If you think you still have a seat at the table. You think we invented socialism, capitalism, communism. and all isms and schisms that you pride yourself in being today. For you, you were not even a thought, an afterthought, or a forethought in those days. We saw you just like a cow, a working machine, a property to be traded. You're a commodity. So before you cry for a seat at the table, remember, you are on the plate, you're on the tray on that table. Whew. I like it because it's true. So when the British now started educating, which means brainwashing, the kings and the princes, they came back much more receptive of British propaganda. They were much more receptive now. They are much more suggestible to British tactics. They were much more accepting of British tactics. And this is exactly why the kings were never the solution in the first place. You guys say, oh no, the kings must run the country. But the kings already are. They already are. Because the politicians are the descendants of the kings. You think Holomisa is some peasant? Do you not know that the Holomisa bloodline, they are chiefs? You think Mandela was just some guy who was educated? No, they are chiefs. The Madikizelas, chiefs. Same thing in KZN, the Zumas, chiefs. Obviously, they're not kings, but they're chiefs. Albert Lutuli, chiefs. Buthelezi, a prince. You think those people were just peasants? No, most of them were royalty. Most of them were and still are royalty. You know, you need to understand that. Because nobody else had access to education. We didn't. We, the commoners, didn't have access. Those who fought back didn't have access to European education. Those who had access to European education are the children of the royals, because they're the only ones who mattered in the minds of the British. Why did they matter? So that they could what? They could keep the native population acquiescent, pusillanimous. Their job is to safeguard European interests by maintaining a perpetual state of acquiescence and pusillanimity. Absolute control through the drunkening of the natives. I don't rate any of them, Aizo. I don't rate any of them. Don't even single out Mandela. Don't even single him out. Don't give him that honor. I don't rate none of them, because today as we speak, the average black South African per month cannot have 1,800 rand to themselves in each family. Today as we speak, the average black South African who works will earn 3,500 to 4,500. Right now as we speak, of all poor people in this country, 93% are black. Right now as we speak, of all black people in this country, 6 live in poverty. Below the poverty line. 6 of all, out of every 10 black people, 6 live below the poverty line. In Eastern Cape and KZN, 3 out of 10 men are rapists. They have admitted it. At least 3 out of 10 men are rapists, or they've thought of raping someone. This is all based on research. Our people are clearly broken. They're clearly broken. So why should I rate people who've been claiming to be leaders? What have they led except safeguarding, helping Rupert get richer and Oppenheimer to get richer and Dinell to get richer and the Kirsch family to get richer? What have they done? So I don't rate them. If they still want to lie to you and tell you that democracy is the way, let's be democratic, guys. Let's use socialism and Leninism and capitalism and Marxism, all the isms and schisms. What we need is to get our people to benefit from their country. Our people must benefit from their gold. Our people must benefit from the gas in this country. Our people must own the gas in this country. People must own the gold, the platinum, all the rare earth minerals, the magnets, the manganese, the coal, the fish in the water. We've got 3 oceans in this here. 3 currents converging in the Southern Cape. The warm current, the warm Agalas current, or warm Mozambique, the warm Mozambique current, warm Indian current on the east. We've got the cold Benguela current from the Atlantic Ocean. We've got the Antarctic circumpolar current from Antarctica. 3 different temperatures, 3 different levels of nutrients. The water is very rich because it's so diverse. It's so diverse. We've got so much to offer in terms of fisheries, aquaculture. We've got so much to offer in our waters alone. We could eat from it. We've got a massively big country. You know how big South Africa is? It's massive. South Africa is big, and there's very few people in this country. Instead, they've reduced us to citizens instead of natives. We're no longer natives anymore. We are citizens in the same status as people who arrived in this country. We didn't arrive. We were forged here. But today, there's not even any mention of native South African. There's black African now. You're just a black African. That could be anyone. That could be someone from Chad. That could be someone from Mauritania. Someone from the Sahara Desert. That could be some nomadic Tuareg black African. It's a very vague thing that none of our cultures ever used to refer to ourselves. You're no longer a native in your land now. They never use native when they talk about you. They say black African. I'm like, who's black African? At home, I've never heard this word. In my language, it doesn't exist. They've reduced you in status. Natives are natives anywhere else. In America, the natives are natives. In Australia, the natives are natives. In Canada, the natives are natives. In South Africa, there are no natives anymore. What they're doing is to feed you propaganda that you came from somewhere else. After they've taken everything from you, they're taking you from you now. Bani tagata. Abaphathi belizwe bani tagata. They are lawyering you. They want you to stay in a state of constant confusion. Constant confusion. You can't fight now for something you don't feel like you own. So the British take over. They literally remove the teeth of the kings. The kings become vassals of British interests. To this day, many kings, they've got military uniforms from Britain. Churches became vassals of British interests. And that's how they break the people then, by educating them. The British understood, after wiping them out militarily, you have to educate them now. Then what follows after that, the British, the Boer, they start to struggle, blah, 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 blah. And then in 1910, they form the Union of South Africa, which gave birth to the Republic, which is what we have today, really. But not after they took all the land. They took all the land when they realized, hey, we're not going to be able to wipe out these natives. So let's take 93% of the land, give them 7%, make sure they're in little reserves, native reserves, build such a strong system that their own leaders are going to crush them within those native reserves. Keep them within that 7% of the land. They must take away any industrial skills they might have, take away any industries from them, take away anything. They must be beggars. Just like King Afonso of the Congo in 1526 was begging King João III of Portugal to stop taking his people as slaves, whom he offered, by the way, in the beginning when he thought he was being treated special. Stop. If native people behave like infants, they will be treated as infants. Same thing that Minister Kumbuzo Chabeni, when they were being disrespected by who's that nerd? The fake smart person, the fake genius, man. Elon Musk, the fake genius, who fake rich man, who's literally chowing government money and taxpayers' money. Anyway, when they were being disrespected by that bastard, and then they went to the orange man, the golden Goliath, Donald Trump, they went to him. Kumbuzo Chabeni was busy bragging there to Julius Malema, the Jew, that She's friends with Elon Musk. She's friends with Elon Musk. She's bragging to Julius. And she was telling Julius that, no, Donald Trump gave us his word. He's coming to the G20. And Donald didn't go to the G20. He told them that you guys are murdering white South Africans. And the white South Africans, all of them are quiet. They're not saying anything. Maybe one or two are saying something. But the millions and millions of white South Africans who are enjoying life and comfort here in this country are not saying anything. They're quiet. You know what silence means, man? You know what silence means? You know, it's an English saying. Silence is consent. That's what they say. So for me, if millions of white South Africans are going to keep quiet, whilst Donald Trump is claiming that they are being murdered, they are being hunted down, perhaps they like it. Perhaps they prefer that. You know? Because we've seen time and again white South Africans using the ANC as a substitute name for black. Whenever they want to say something bad about black people, they just say ANC. Now we already know. Because ANC made them richer. ANC made more white millionaires and billionaires than the apartheid government. They're not angry at the no bloody ANC. But they see, damn, why is my property ruling me? At least, even in the little capacity that they are, because they're not really ruling whites. But I'm entitled to be in charge of these people. Why are they all of a sudden now thinking that they can be in charge of me? I promise you, white South Africans literally like it when Donald Trump says they are being murdered. They like it. They drool over the idea of ANC being, regime change, because that's what's coming. You think America is doing that just because Israel is being taken to court? It's not just because of that. The ultimate goal is regime change. Unseat these bloody black people from government. Because for them, it's not ANC. You guys think it's ANC. They couldn't give a damn about ANC, these people. It's not ANC. It's you. Because ANC represents you. So when they say remove the ANC, they say remove anything that has this. Guys, we know the ANC is not running South Africa. It's the GNU today. You have John Steenhuisen, whom they say is eating money through Uber Eats, which we know is not true. I mean, they are all eating money, but John Steenhuisen is not really eating money. They are just fighting with Helen Zille. It's their internal battles. Helen Zille wants to remove the Steenhuisen guy. They'll probably put the mayor of Cape Town in that position. I think mayor of Cape Town, they like him, Jordan Hill-Lewis, because he's an elitist. That boy from Edgemead. That boy from Edgemead, he's an elitist of note. And he's a proper Cape Townian. Steenhuisen is from KZN. He's a bit soft. Jordan Hill-Lewis is more of an elitist, and Helen Zille likes that. That Jewish immigrant called Helen Zille likes it. And they all like it when Donald Trump speaks and says those things about South Africa. They like it. I don't care who you are. If you're a white South African and you're not standing up every damn time, you must make it a point every day to post about that there's no white genocide. But no, every weekend they're going to Oranjezicht Farmers Market, Route 24, Route 22 Market. They're going to Bootlegger every morning, Woolworths Food Restaurant every morning, enjoying money, enjoying comfort, enjoying the festive season. They're not bothered about what Donald Trump is saying because they like it. But they don't have to say it publicly. Now, Donald Trump is doing all that for them. They told us that silence is consent, and they are consenting to what Donnie is saying. And you cannot convince me otherwise. You cannot convince me otherwise. The native population in South Africa, the level of wealth that they own is only 5% of what white people own. White people are 95% richer. 95% richer or 20 times richer than black people. The average white household multiplies the income of the average black household 5 times. And this is old statistics that I'm quoting. Maybe worse now. Average white household is 5 times richer than the average black household in South Africa. The wealth that white people have is 90% more than that of 95% more than that of black people. Only 3% to 4% of black people even have wealth more than 250,000 in value. You don't understand what I'm saying. That means black people don't have wealth. They live from mouth to mouth. They live from paycheck to paycheck. The Aboriginal gang, those ones, they only care about money. And even with this Aboriginal thing, most I guess they are getting funding probably from the likes of Afriforum or whoever's funding the Afriforum thing, because they are just a grassroots level group doing campaigning for the Afrikaners. In fact, the Aboriginal gang now have started saying Afrikaners are the descendants of Krotoa. Afrikaners are descendants of Krotoa, guys. They're African. Afrikaners are African. I heard one woman say that, and you can tell this woman is actually Malaysian. She's saying that nonsense. I'm like, does she even know who the Afrikaners are? Dutch, guys. If anything, some of them are mixed with Europeans, with West Africans. Even then, it's probably 3 ancestors out of thousands of European ancestors. You do know that doesn't make them African. They literally have 1 or 2 black ancestors. It means nothing in the bigger scheme of things. I heard some Malaysian woman who claims she's Aboriginal. She says Afrikaners are descendants of Krotoa. Do you know Krotoa? In fact, there was no person called Krotoa. It's Grotwas. It's a girl that was taken by Jan van Riebeeck as an interpreter. They probably SA'd that girl. They probably graved her time and again, like they used to do. They probably graved her, exchanged her amongst themselves, although they were married with their own women, but they liked the idea of having some little black property here. That girl was a Kora girl who was under the care of Heri of the Kamako. She was Kora. Kora are the same people as Amangosini, who are Xhosa speaking today, and also Kora speaking. Kora are the same people as Amagiko. Kora are the same people as they are related to Amacete. They are related to Amabango, Amanchilibe, like the president of Botswana, his Bango. So he would have been related to Koroto, whom they call Krotoa. So I don't know how the Afrikaners are related to that. I'm more related to Krotoa than any of them could ever be. But they don't care about truth. They care about pushing a narrative. Yes, they are related. The Kora are related to Matlauko. Yes. Gaukwa. They call themselves Gaukwa in Kora. Gaukwa, the wildcat people. So they've started now with the nonsense that Afrikaners are native. It was the British who started it. Sarah Bartman is from Gunukwa. She's Gunukwa. Today they are Xhosa speaking. Many of them are Xhosa speaking. Some speak Afrikaans. So some would be colored today in the Eastern Cape, not anywhere else. You can't claim Sarah Bartman if you're not from that region. She was from the region of Ukelekwa region. They call it Hamtus. She was Gunukwa from the Gunu peoples. Today we have Gunukwa, we have Gunukwebe, who are Xhosa speaking. Yes. So her descendants today, some would probably be colored, many are Xhosa. That's it. Yeah. But only people from that region. You can't literally come from Kimberley. You have nothing to do with Sarah Bartman. Shut up. You come from Observatory in Cape Town. What are you talking about, Sarah Bartman? And it's not Sarah Bartman, it's Siwura. Anyway, now the British then, after they had broken the kings and all that, and they start with, remember now, apartheid is not from 1948. It's from literally the 1400s when the Portuguese arrived. They start apartheid because apartheid is basically what the Pope sent Europeans. What the Pope sent Europeans to do in Africa through the papal bulls that the Pope declared and decreed. That was apartheid. That was white supremacy. That was Nazism. That was fascism. So apartheid is not an invention of South Africa. It came from the Pope, through the Portuguese, through the Dutch, through the Germans, through the English. That's why everywhere they went in Africa, they did apartheid. In Namibia, they literally committed genocide against the Herero and the Nama. In Congo and Zaire, look what Leopold did. In Rhodesia, Zimbabwe and Northern Rhodesia, look what they did. Go to Kenya, the Mau Mau had to fight. Go to West Africa. In West Africa, because they are so greedy, they were literally selling each other. But look what they did. So apartheid is not a South African unique thing. It happened all over. Now in South Africa, they mastered it, and the natives accepted it. To this day, the natives are asking for recognition and validation, left, right, and center. I still repeat, if native people are gonna infantilize themselves, are gonna behave like infants, native people are gonna be treated like infants. You cannot be asking for permission, man, when people are telling you straight that we came here to take, to subjugate, and to enslave in perpetuity because you are not human. And you still, oh no, I just want to sit at the table. They're like, you are not human, man. Go outside with the dogs. In fact, dog, come inside. You, kafir, go. I need to calm down, you know. I need to calm down. Thank you, observer. So how the land gets taken then, it's a process from Dutch to English to Afrikaans. So when the Dutch started, they take it through the Werechten, through the Leninplatz, and through the Commando, 3-tier expropriation system. The English, the British, expropriated through genocide, outright genocide. They literally unalive, and then they annex. They unalive, they annex. They unalive, they annex. We're going to go through the battles in the future. And then the Afrikaners, they pass acts, Native Land Act, this Land Act, Group Areas Act, just like the Pope did in the 1400s when they were passing the papal bulls like Dum Diversas, like Romanus Pontifex. The Afrikaners did that as well. So it was a three-tier system of expropriation from Dutch, English to Afrikaans. 3 tiers. So the land was expropriated without compensation. The land was expropriated with bloodshed. It was expropriated with genocide. That's how it was expropriated in South Africa. There was no negotiation. There was no compromise. There was bloodshed. After bloodshed. After bloodshed. Until the people acquiesced. The same system that all the systems were used to take the land, people think will help to return it. It's funny, but it's stupid. So that's how land was taken. Why was it taken? Well, from the very onset, Europeans came here to take because they were given the authority. It's white supremacy. It's Nazism. It's apartheid. It's fascism. It's the same thing. All these things, they converge at a point of nexus. What is the point of nexus between Nazism, Christian nationalism, apartheid, fascism, white supremacy? What is the point of nexus? It's whiteness. Whiteness as an identity requires that there be us and there be them. It requires that there be perpetual inequality. Whiteness as a system requires that there be perpetual dominion of the other. And the othering of native populations all around the world has created the black identity and the brown. These are reactionary identities. They're not real. No one can define what it means to be black because it's not a native thing. We didn't invent it. It's a reactionary identity. It feeds into the system of white supremacy. It is the othering of the self to claim what whiteness has given you. Elon Musk needs this to be preserved. Elon Musk is a white supremacist. He's a technocrat. He's a technocrat. Technocracy is white supremacy. Conservatism is white supremacy. Liberals are white supremacists. Democrats are white supremacists. Even communists, actually. Go to Russia and see if you're going to be accepted. Even socialists, go to Cuba, see how the black Cubans were treated. Go to Argentina, see how the black Argentinians, if they even still exist. You don't understand. You think it's just capitalism. That's the problem. All the isms and schisms, every single system that has come to you has come only for one thing: to perpetuate the dominion of you by the group that brought that system. The group that brought any system to you brought it only for one reason: to perpetually dominate you. And it should be an easy thing to understand, guys. Why would any group bring something to benefit you? Why would they want to benefit you? Why? How does that help them when they benefit you? I really don't understand people who think, oh, they came to help us, guys. They came to civilize. Civilize you how? You didn't have GBV when they didn't come here. People think our culture was GBV. How? How was it GBV? Because now GBV is congruent with the abundance of alcohol in our communities. I kid you not. GBV is literally aligned with the abundance of alcohol in our communities. GBV is aligned with the abundance of poverty in our communities. Poverty is aligned with the taking of the land. The taking of the land results in men having to leave their families, going to the mines. You know what happens in the mines? They're being broken, those men there. Back broken. You know, in the mines, men are literally, their wives are not even allowed to enter the mines, actually, the camps. Men are sleeping with other men, then they come back home, they no longer want the wife. They beat up the wife because the wife was busy with another guy in the village. Obviously, you left the wife 1 week after you got married. She's being mistreated by your sisters here because they feel like she's here to take you from them. She's being comforted by someone from the village. You've been away for 6 months. You know, you're not going to build a family like that. I promise you. You're not going to build a family. And Europeans understood it. You think Europeans are dumb? When they drop their kids to school every day and pick them up every day, sometimes they even go there during lunch. They leave work and go to the school during lunch, sometimes daily. You think they're dumb? That's how you build a family. You need to instill values, instill beliefs. You don't instill beliefs by being away as a man. Oh yeah, man must work hard. You wake up at 4 a.m. to go work, come back at 7 p.m. Who's raising your children? How will your children know about who they are? That's why South Africans don't know anything about themselves. Their fathers were not in the house to teach them who they are. Not just South Africans, Southern Africans generally. They're not gonna know we come from. No, you don't come from any. You don't know because your father didn't tell you. He was not in the house. He was in the mines. 3 a.m. he wakes up, needs to catch 4 taxis to the workplace. He's gonna be called boy by a 16-year-old Caucasoid. So do you understand how it's a cycle? It's a cycle. And it ties to everything else. So the land then was taken. We're left with a 7%. And even in that 7%, you don't own anything. Even the resources that are there. You just work and you enrich others. So I say, you cannot be crying for a seat at the table when you are the topic of discussion on that table. You cannot be crying for a seat at the table when you are the meal of the day on that table. Now, I love when politicians will be getting people to be worked up about Europeans. Let's fight against the Europeans. But this same person, we're not even sure if he's truly native. He's 1 minute he claims he's Jewish. We are Jewish from North Africa. The next minute he comes from Yemen. Why are you listening to these people? Yeah. So, I'm trying to say, guys, don't think Afriforum, Lex Libertas, Solidarity, Orania, don't think they're doing these things in silos. It's just a procession. It's a continual process that started when they arrived in the first place. And they did not arrive to help you. They did not arrive to integrate with you. They did not arrive to naturalize. They did not arrive to naturalize. They arrived to subjugate, to conquer, to own. Go read the Papal Bull, Dum Diversas by Papa Niccolo V. Go read the Papal Bull, Romanus Pontifex by Papa Niccolo V. Go read the bull after that one. Read it so that you know that they were given a mission and that mission became their culture. You cannot remove people from their culture, especially if they're the one running the show. The culture just evolves. It becomes capitalism. It becomes communism. It becomes socialism. It becomes stoicism, isms and schisms and all these different things. But it's the same thing. Conquest, subjugation, ownership. That's why they get pissed off when you're starting to make alliances with other people. They need you to be loyal to them. They have a fetish of owning you. They hate it when you're trying to be independent, you're going to work with other little smaller groups. You know, when Cyril was going to Turkey and to Singapore and to Indonesia, they didn't like it. They hate it. They feel like you're betraying them. You must, psychologically, you must know. You must know that you belong to them. They love it when you beg. They love it when you kneel before them and you beg them. Let's work together, please, master. It's giving King Alfonso of the Congo, who was begging King João of Portugal, who then tried to take his life 14 years later. They love it when you beg them. Let's go. Let's send a delegation to the USA. And they get you embarrassed when you get there. They embarrass you. They embarrass you. And this is the thing when you don't know who you are. Because you don't even know the thought process of an indigenous person who's untouched, who's undiluted. That's why you must go back in time, learn about your people, learn how they thought. Learn how they thought. You realize how confident our people were. Just from small conversation, our people they were mentally superior. They were mentally superior, like they did not need to be told how to think. Mara now, ANC can't even talk to Russia freely. I know the Roman statute, guys. Mbalula was busy making excuses recently, making dumb excuses. Mbalula, and this person is said he's going to be the president apparently. Already you can see if Mbalula becomes the president, the situation is going to be worse than it already is. If not Mbalula, they say it's going to be Mutsipe. It's going to be worse even more. Because these are people who are in the system. They are players in the system. So forget about saviors now. Forget about saviors. And when I say it in proper indigenous fashion, umuntu mawufunuke madoda. Umuntu mawufunuke. Lift up your buttocks and stand up for yourself as a man. Don't think that there's people who are trying to help you here. These people came for dominion and subjugation and slavery. The same thing happened, and it's not just Europeans, the same thing happened with the Arabs. The same thing happened with the Arabs. You do know that Arab slavery, it started 1,500 years ago. At least the modern version that we know. They've been doing it since 1,500 years ago. They're still doing it to this day. They did it in North Africa. They did it in West Africa. They did it in East Africa, from Eritrea down to Mozambique. Eritrea down to Mozambique. They are ruling from Turkey at that time. They are ruling from Iraq. They took millions and millions and millions of black men and cut their penises off so that they could serve as eunuchs without the threat of reproducing with their women. They took millions of native Africans from their homes for generations and generations and cut off their penises so that there was no threat of them being bred out. The mistake of the Europeans in the Western Hemisphere, they allowed the slaves to breed because they thought they would be able to perpetually enslave, because that was always the plan, to enslave perpetually, to own perpetually. You think, we are free, we are equal. No! The plan is to own you forever. If they could find a way, a button somewhere to press, so that you could understand that your ownership is perpetual. They own you forever. They would press that button. And they're confused now. They don't know which button to press. They don't know which button to press. And that's the whole thing. With the Americans, they mistakenly took these slaves, made them to breed, and then the slaves started breeding with their women now. Because the women also fetishize black men. That's why some of the European women, they actually hate black women. Because they feel like, you are taking what's ours. Those black men are ours. We own them. You know, like they used to. They could just call a black man from the field, a working black man from the garden. Come help me, boy. Lock the door. Service me. And the black man can't say anything. Yes, ma'am, I'm going to service you. Today they are bunny hopping. They don't know, it's the psyche. The bunny hopping is in the psyche. It's genetic. King Kong syndrome. King Kong syndrome. You know the King Kong movie where it's only the blonde white woman who can calm down this beast. The beast listens when they are literally sending a subliminal message to you. Oh, wow. It's nice to date the descendants of Jan van Riebeeck. They're saying that on TikTok. Oh, it's nice. Oh, shame, man. You don't understand. You do not understand. You had the Trans-Saharan slave trade, the Red Sea slave trade, the Indian Ocean slave trade. The Trans-Saharan is when they take slaves through the Sahara Desert. So they take them from Mali, they take them from Ghana, Benin, Togo, through the Sahara Desert. The Red Sea, they take slaves from North Africa to parts of Europe, from Southern Europe through North Africa. They go through the Red Sea. Then we have the Indian Ocean slave trade. This is the one now that involves Mozambicans, Tanzanians, the Zanzibaris, Kenyans, Ethiopians, some people from Uganda, Burundi, today, Somalia, Eritrea. This is the slavery of the Zani, the slavery of the Azanians. 1,500 years of slavery. You think 1,500 years is a mistake? Do you know how long 1,500 years is, guys? Do you know how long 1,500 years is? A 100 years, 4 generations. 100 years, 4 generations. 1,000 years, 40 generations. 500 years, 20 generations. In 60 generations, there was slavery all over Africa. 60 generations of people being enslaved. 60 generations. It changes the genetics. I think people don't understand what I'm saying. Like, you become genetically adapted to being a slave. It becomes you. It becomes you. You've been going through slavery for 60 generations and more. You become a slave genetically. And they've studied you. They know how to socially engineer that state, that perfect conducive environment for you to revert back. You love them. It's within you. You know, I was at a place known as Foreshore in Cape Town. Very windy place. Early morning, I'm in a place next to a hotel. And this hotel is full of tourists throughout the year. And I'm walking to another building where the parking lot is. So I'm going to grab the car and go to work. Sometime back, different year altogether. And as I'm walking there, I see this Uber driver. Yay! The Uber driver is picking up a client. The client is clearly white, probably European. The way the Uber driver came out of the car running, already bowing down towards the white man. I'm not exaggerating. He ran like he couldn't bear seeing this European dragging his own suitcase. He ran. Oh, sir, how are you, sir? He was running, almost kneeling down. How are you, sir? Don't worry, don't worry. You try to go to a restaurant, like a average restaurant, like Primi, go get pasta or something. The waitresses and the waiters are running away from you. They look like you, but they're running away from you like, you are, guys, you are, bafunani. We wonder why it's manifunani. So it has become a genetic reality now for these ones to want to serve these ones. It's a genetic reality. You guys must be aware of it. It's like an automatic state of mind. You know what Mandela says? And I know he's not our favorite. I know Mandela is not our favorite. But you know what he says? He says, even as a president, he once went to this aeroplane and the pilot was white. He says he was so scared. The pilot was black. He was so scared that, damn, this is a black pilot. So I'm saying it's so deep that even the person you breed with, the person you mate with to make a child, you need to be very careful. You cannot mate with someone with a feeble mind. Do not mate with someone who displays mental weakness, psychological weakness. That person needs a proper cleansing. You need someone who's psychologically strong. We need someone who's psychologically strong and willing to do the difficult work of undoing the generational damage. This is exactly why Mao Zedong of China was very, very, very brutal. To undo the damage. This is why some leaders are very tough on their people. Because people tend to be weak if they are allowed. They tend to be weak. And our people, we've seen them. They've been so weak for generations without end. And we cannot allow that to continue. So, the Arab slave trade, therefore, took those three paths. Trans-Saharan, Red Sea route, and Indian route. That's why you've got cities in Indonesia and India. Cities from West Africa. From West Africa. South Africa needs to be closed. If we say we want to save these people, close the bloody country for the next 2 generations or even next 3 generations. Close the bloody country, limit social media, create the curriculum by yourself. The curriculum cannot be created by oligarchs and billionaires in America in some front facade foundations. You cannot have oil billionaires creating the curriculum for you and you're teaching your kids that nonsense. The curriculum must be created from scratch with a particular goal in mind. It starts there. From ground root level, the kids must be programmed to help themselves. Because right now, the programming that the kids have is not working. Close the country, control social media for the next 75 years. That's three full generations. By the 4th one, at least you should be seeing some change. But this needs people who have a very focused and concerted effort. So you need a small group of people to come together on the side to do this. This group of people must be able to influence the politics. They must be able to influence public opinion. They must be able to influence business. What I'm saying is a proper secret society of indigenous people. That's for the young generation now. A long-term plan for them. It's easy to fix for the kids. For the adults, what you need is people like-minded come together. Come together. We organize networks. We always prefer each other more than anybody else. We are the first preference. Business opportunity, first preference. But there must be constitution. There must be strict constitution, strict codes of behavior. Very strict codes of behavior. This is why crime syndicates are successful. They're not successful because they're nice to each other. They're not nice to each other. That's why they're successful. If you want things to be nice, you want good vibes all the time, you are weak and you will be conquered and ruled by others. Focus on that. Focus on removing that nonsense of wanting nice things, nice feelings in everything. Oh, it must feel good. It mustn't feel good. It doesn't have to feel good. Look at the Chinese. Look at how hard those people work. And then go see their country. And you realize, dang. My goodness. My goodness. So you start from grassroots level, design a new curriculum altogether, and then control social media. Kids must consume what is designed to create soldiers out of them. And I'm not saying physical soldiers only. Soldiers psychologically. Soldiers intellectually. Why are you still learning about the theorem of Pythagoras when that thing has been designed by ancient cultures long ago as a measurement system? The Pythagoras theorem is not the theorem of Pythagoras. Pythagoras did not invent it. It's been there. Ancient cultures have been using those systems. 2 perpendicular lines and 1 long line. It's a measurement unit. And then add another one. Then you have a proper shape. You have a proper rectangle. You could use it to build something. But now, no, you must learn about Pythagoras, the Greek. You must take the Hippocratic oath because Hippocrates is the father of medicine. How is he the father of medicine? When he was a student here in our own continent. No, I'm going to take the Hippocratic oath. I'm a doctor, guys. You see? So you must shut that nonsense off. That nonsense must be shut off. Cut the people, because the people are the hosts of the parasite. That's what's happening. Right now, we are the host, and the parasite has become one with us. So you want to cut the pipeline, cut the umbilical cord that connects us to the parasite. And that umbilical cord is the system of these parasites of ours. You cut that, you contain this matrix, this environment, you manipulate it so that the people can actually be able to observe themselves. They must be able to observe themselves. Right now, they are not able to see themselves. They think that the parasite, when they look at the parasite, they think it's them. And you know, it's not them. It's the parasite. It's inside them. So they must be able to see themselves outside of the parasite. But for them to do that, you must cut the umbilical cord, which is the parasite is a pipeline. I hope you're getting what I'm saying, because I'm not going to get any clearer. You cut that. New generations, they're disconnected from the parasite, but they need to be. You need to replace that with something. That is the cleansing process, the undoing now. Those who are older, they just need to be manipulated from behind the scenes. Trust me, you cannot trust our people to run things. If you could not trust them for the past 1,500 years, you can't trust them now. 1,500 years, guys, do you know how many generations that is? 60 generations minimum. They've been doing the same thing, screwing themselves up. So you can't trust those people. Create a system, very few people who buy into the idea that we need to free ourselves. But to free ourselves, we may have to lose a lot of ourselves, a lot of our people. And if that's the price, it's good. Build a system behind the scenes, which I'm already doing on my side. I'm already doing. We need security. Men, women, train, be fit, be able to fight, be capable of doing unspeakable things. Don't do them to each other, but be capable if need be. You can see what's happening in the world right now. People are coming into people's territories and taking over. We would be the first out, Tina, as a people to be taken over because we are weak. We need training. Training like at a deep and advanced level. And talk about physical and mental training. Intellectual training. We must be able to form an intellectual basis of our ideas. Because that's how ideas are sold. Ideas are not sold through noise. You need a strong intellectual basis. And I've been sowing the seeds for that. So you need that physical aspect, security. You need that intellectual aspect. You need technology. Technology is not European, guys. You do know that fire is technology. You do know that using water, mixing it with iron and this and that, that's technology. Forgery, when you forge stuff, smelting and smithing, that's technology. You need technology. You need a strong family unit. I repeat, not everything is about pleasure. We need to forget that nonsense of pleasure and freedom. You do know that the people who are running the world, like the rich people in 2025, they don't care about those things of pleasure and freedom. For them, pleasure is to control you. They are telling you that, oh, you are free, guys, be free, choose everything, do whatever you want. They are literally screwing you using that. So they're selling you the idea of freedom, but they understand that true freedom is denial of self. When you deny yourself, that's actually the true freedom. Freedom cannot be lack of control. It has to be mastery of control. So we need to discipline. So we need an organized now process where we repeat and repeat and repeat, year in, year out, camps coming together, until it moves across your family. The young kids have to be captured. We have to capture the young children. The young children must be captured. Do you understand how our ancestors were able to fight until their generations passed and our generation is the weakest one? They were able to fight because they understood. They had one agenda: to preserve their independence. We don't know what independence tastes like. We think we do, but we don't. Woolworths closes for 1 month. Checkers closes for 1 month. Pick and Pay closes for 1 month. Spar, ShopRite, YouSave, you name them. We are screwed. We are done for. Clicks closes just for a month and Discount. Yo, our people are done for because they don't even have a medical system. So what you want is to get people to understand that we were once a fully fledged functional society. We were a fully fledged functioning civilization, and we can restore that with modern technological advances, and that is the solution. Right here and right now. And that's my time, guys. I'm out. Thank you for the people who support my work. People who want to join Project Ngasi, which is a 6-month introduction course to Undoko, which is a secret society that I'm building. Undoko has a couple of wings. There's the military wing that we're building, security wing. There's the school university wing, which is going to be doing the intellectual work right now. There's the pressure group heritage activism wing, which deals with basically awareness and pressuring authorities and pressuring our people. So there's a pressure group. And then there's the occultic part now, the hidden knowledge part, which is going to be very, very, very extremely sensitive, because not everyone should be part of this. Most people shouldn't have access to the true sensitive part of how to be a people. So I'm running Project Ngasi, 6 months. It's paid. You want to know more? Inbox me or ask people in the comments. $250 a month. Start January next year. Do it for 6 months. You get onboarded onto Undo. You become a member of Undo. Afriforum has been doing this. Lex Libertas are doing this. They're hosting gala dinners overseas now. If we're going to wait for some savior to come and save you right now, you're already saved because you were given this. You think this is there for decoration? You think these are there for decoration? Suddenly Tugan. I'm gonna post this on YouTube. My channel is Sandile Tugani. Go there, subscribe. It's gonna be there probably by the end of the week. Thank you guys. Bye bye.